5 Association for Students of the University of Nebraska Student Government Executive Candidate Debate. Thank you all for joining us tonight. As you find your seats, I'd just like to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Josie Golka, and I am the Assistant News Editor at the Daily Nebraskan, and I will be your moderator for this evening. Tonight, we will hear from the executive candidates from the ticket ahead of the elections on April 1st and 2nd. While all student government positions are up for election this spring, tonight will be for students to hear from those running to represent UNL at the top of the ticket. I would like to take a moment to explain some of the rules, and then I will let the candidates introduce themselves. But before we get to the candidates, I want to start by explaining some of the basics of ASUN elections. Student election groups, or SEGs, are formed by candidates for ASUN as a form of party, but each of these groups are not affiliated with a traditional United States political party. You will not see candidates running as Republicans or Democrats tonight. SEGs allow students to run together on the same platform, but are not required to run, as we will see with our independent candidates this evening. Presidents and internal vice presidents run on a coupled ticket in a similar way to a U.S. president and vice presidential pair, while the external vice president can run separately or jointly with their SEG's top executives. When introducing each candidate, they will also introduce if they are running on an SEG platform or if they are running independently. Let's get a hand for all of our executive candidates this evening. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. The rules for our debate tonight will be as follows. The first ticket to speak was drawn randomly. That group tonight is Catalyst. The designation will then move clockwise to their tickets left for each topic. Tickets will have 5 minutes for an opening statement at the beginning of the debate before we move into initial questions. After the opening statements and questions, we will then begin to cover specific topic questions focused on issues regarding the university. Each ticket will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. Candidates are reminded that they are not required to use all 2 minutes, but will be cued to stop when I say your time has run out. Thank you. The topics that will be covered tonight are campus affordability, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, sustainability and environmental policy, campus safety and security measures, especially in terms of immigration status for international students, and student government spending and student fees. After each topic, tickets will then be given 30 seconds each for a rebuttal in the same order of the topic, and 15 seconds rebuttal will be added to my discretion. Attendees of the debate also will have 15 minutes to ask questions of the candidates. I will have the discretion to cut a response short just in order to maximize time. We do have a lot of questions tonight, but we would love to hear all of your feedback and remarks. Tickets will also have 5 minutes for closing remarks at the end of the night. All attendees should know that this event is being live streamed both on the Daily Nebraskan's YouTube channel and through several outlets within the College of Journalism and Mass Communications, and will be uploaded to YouTube channels at the end of the night. A 10-minute break will also be provided during our debate at 7:45 for those observing Ramadan and for the rest of the crowd to take a break. We will now begin with our opening arguments from each of our tickets. Catalyst will go first tonight. Give me a sec to pull up my timer. All right, and I am ready whenever you are.
Okay, great. We're Catalyst, and before we get too much farther into our introduction, we just want to say thank you. Thank you to the Daily Nebraskan for hosting this debate, as well as the other campaigns for taking part, as well as all the students that are here in person and online supporting the candidates. So Catalyst is a student election group running for you. Students who desire to feel impactful change from their student government. Our slate is made up of 45 students who represent more than 100 recognized student organizations on campus. And we're incredibly proud of each and every member of our team who has taken the jump and desired to support this campaign, choosing the unconventional, new, and vibrant change. Now, a little bit about us. I'm Libby Wilkins. I'm from Ainsworth, Nebraska, and I'm running for student body president and student regent. Throughout my college career, I've participated in many registered student organizations, some of which include NHRI Leadership Mentoring, Chi Omega, and the Newman Center. Throughout that time, I've taken on leadership roles, and I believe those experiences, along with others, make me the best candidate for this position. During my time as a state FFA officer, I collaborated with some of the most well-known agricultural leaders and business people throughout our state. I had the ability to meet with state senators and promote agricultural education programming. Many of those networking skills I developed would be utilized well in the role of student regent. As an agricultural leadership major, most of my courses focus on organizational leadership, proven leadership theories and models, and how to effectively collaborate on large teams. I know, all of that may come in handy as a student body president. I have significant leadership experience that would allow me to effectively both challenge and change the culture of ASUN while engaging with students.
Hello, everyone. I'm Benjamin Morgan, and I'm from Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm running to be the Internal Vice President of Student Government. I've been a member of ASUN since my freshman year of college, and that began with Freshman Campus Leadership Associates, where I continued my involvement as a sophomore when I was the director of that program with Misha Jalali. As the director, I was a mentor for 24 freshman participants to pass legislation throughout their ASUN career, and I spearheaded ASUN's first ever philanthropic event to raise money for the Husker Food Pantry. I'm a current senator for the College of Architecture, and I'm in my second term. I'm a member of Sigma Chi Fraternity, Order of Omega, and a 2024 orientation leader. I'm running for the internal vice president position because I'm passionate about the student body and giving back to communities that I've benefited so much from. I am passionate about being a Husker, and I want to give back to the Husker community.
Hi everyone, I'm Misha Jalali and I'm from Toronto, Canada. As a first-generation student, my journey in student government started as a freshman in Freshman Campus Leadership Associates, and last year I had the privilege of co-directing the program with Benjamin. FCLA was something we changed and for the better, giving first-year students a meaningful way to engage with ASUN and make an impact early on. I'm running for external vice president because I believe that a government run by students must be for the students. ASUN should not only advocate for students, but actively listen to them, ensuring that every voice on this campus is heard and valued. My passion for student government stems from its ability to create real change, and I want to continue working to make ASUN more accessible, transparent, and effective for every student at our university. Our campaign is running on 5 pillars: servant leadership, transparency, engagement, advocacy, and rebuild. We desire to create a stronger system to generate more meaningful legislation, bridge East and City campuses, and increase intentional encounters between the student body population. Throughout this debate, you'll hear more about how these are key components of our campaign.
ASUN is often operated in a bubble, and it's disconnected from the students that it's meant to serve. This is one of the reasons why I was moved to run a campaign. There are critical conversations that happen in our Senate meetings that never leave the Senate meeting walls. We believe that this has to change, and it can. We're committed to building student government that is collaborative and that functions not as individual silos, but as teams, leveraging our collective strengths to pass stronger legislation.
We also believe in honest and transparent relationships with university administration, with each other, and with students. We've already established connections with current administrators and are prepared to be proactive, not reactive, in advocating for student needs.
Ultimately, tonight, we're not here to speak louder, we're here to listen better. We lead with intention. We desire to bring people in, to make space, to represent every student. We are Catalyst, and we're ready to ignite change. Thank you.
Thank you, Catalyst. We will next hear from our independent ticket.
Hi. Hello. Oh, there we go. Sorry. Hopefully you like my voice because that was a lot. Hello. First, I want to thank the Daily Nebraskan for hosting the debate and everybody who's here. I know it's incredibly hard to take time out of everybody's busy schedules. We're going to spend a lot of time tonight talking about policy. So Jack and I wanted to take the next couple minutes to introduce ourselves as people first. My name is Emma Lenore Lindsay. Though I'm not born and bred Nebraskan, my ties to Nebraska are undeniable. I'm the daughter of a UNL graduate, a lover of Nebraska as my mother's home state, and found myself where the good life lives years ago when COVID brought me here. I'm also a transfer student and a non-traditional student in that I'm a transfer student and in my age. I'm also a student who has dedicated almost 4 years to the betterment of my peers at both my local community college and this university, whether that's within Senate or other obligations. I am active in both my campus and my local community as a mentor within teammates, a tutor, a current senator for the College of Education and Human Sciences, and a chair for one committee and a chair for another wonderful committee. I'm part of the Teacher Scholars Academy within the College of Education and Human Sciences, ODK, and other commitments in our beautiful city. I tell you this to say, I love the communities that I'm a part of. I believe in the voice of every student and every individual. I use my skills and experiences as both an educator and as a person as an asset, supporting and uplifting everybody that comes into contact with me. When I see voices that have gone unheard, perspectives and ideas that have been unconsidered, I jump into action. That is what brings me here tonight, to advocate in every room for every student, if you allow me the privilege and honor to do so.
Like Emma said, thank you to the Daily Nebraskan, thank you to my fellow candidates for being here tonight, for running, and thank you for all of you for being here tonight. As she said, we're going to introduce ourselves. My name is Jack Burchess, and I say it a lot. If you're following my Instagram, you hear it a lot. I'm a 7th generation Nebraskan, and it's something that I'm really proud of. I have homesteaders on both sides of my family. I was born and raised in Grand Island, a city in western Nebraska. But I spent my summers and my breaks and my Christmases out in Bassett, just a few miles away from Ainsworth, at my family ranch. And it was there where I learned that you can disagree with people and be respectful about it. You can get really far in life if you work hard. And it was there where I fell in love with our state. It wasn't until I went to high school in Wyoming. My mom got a job out in Wyoming. And it wasn't until then that I recognized that I loved Nebraska, because I missed it so much. And so coming to UNL was always going to happen. I was born and raised a Husker, and I'm proud to be running for president of the student body. The student body faces real challenges, and I think ASUN does have levers of power. A lot of the time, we get very into our heads we get very full of ourselves into what ASUN is and what ASUN actually can do. But we do have levers of power, and we do have the ability to tangibly affect the Husker experience. Our slogan is called Protecting the Good Life, because the things that make Nebraska great, Husker football, Husker volleyball, great research, those are the things that we need to be protecting. And ASUN does have abilities to do that. Secondly, we're running as independents. Every other group on this stage is a registered student election group. We're running as independents because last year, I chose to run as an independent against the only SEG that was running, because I recognized that 4 people getting to choose the entire committee for fee allocations and the entire Senate was probably not only not democratic, but un-Nebraskan. I was the first senator to win a contested election as an independent in multiple years, and I currently serve as the only independent in the ASUN Senate. It shouldn't matter that you're not connected to people who are running for president if you want to be an ASUN. It shouldn't matter if you're not on their emailing list of who they think make a good leader. The things that should matter is 1, you're a Husker, and 2, you love this school. So I'm running for president to protect that ideal. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We will now hear from our Momentum EVP candidate.
All right. Oh, nice. Hello, everyone. My name is Jade Romero. I'm from Kearney, Nebraska, going to school here, so a fellow small town person. I see a lot of new faces in here, and that's very exciting. I'm actually a fresh face when it comes to student government. My major is in computer science and engineering, and I have a minor in Japanese studies. So this side of the school I haven't really dipped my toes into, but so far it has been such a great experience. I am also a Peter Hewitt Foundation Engineering Academy Scholar, which is a scholarship to advocate and strive for the voices of minorities in the STEM and engineering fields. And with that, I am on their outreach committee. So I work with recruitment and the marketing when it comes to that, and the interviews when we have a new cohort come in. And honestly, I am just happy to be here. This has been a wild ride so far, and I'm super excited to see where this will go next.
Great, thank you. Right. Our last ticket we will hear from tonight is Ascend.
Hi. Likewise, we'd also like to thank the Daily Nebraskan for allowing us to come in and speak about our policy priorities, about our values. Also, shout out to my parents for coming here today. Thank you. So here we're going to tell you a bit about some of the things that we value, but we're going to tell you about what we've done in ASUN and our plans to get things done next year. So, good evening. My name is Luke McDermott. I'm a junior studying political science, economics, and history, and it's one of the greatest honors of my life to be running for student body president and student regent for the University of Nebraska. I want to use this position to make structural changes for students that strengthens the student voice and expands the resources that you have at your disposal. I currently serve as the external vice president for the Association of Students, and through this position, I have served the university by serving on external boards, creating comprehensive project management systems for ASUN, expanding access to Grammarly Premium, starting the process of bringing an Uber Safe Ride program to UNL, and beginning the process of contracting with a university partner to create an online marketplace for students, not to mention the many responsibilities that we share with the rest of the executive team. Before that, I served as the Government Liaison Committee chairperson, testifying twice at the legislature on issues of importance to higher education, and before that, I was a member of the FCLA cohort and a member of the student court. Through exercising leadership in all these capacities and working closely with our student body president, Elizabeth Herman, I've learned that the great responsibilities that come with that role. Although often called a dual role, the student body president and student regent serves three specific roles for the university. First, student body president, the public-facing student representative of the student body that's charged with the great responsibility of representing 24,000 students with one single voice. ASUN president, the internal-facing administrator of a 200-person organization with 22 different organs that all have their own rules, bylaws, and norms. Lastly, the student regent position, a state office that requires an understanding of higher education, the university system, and the politics of the state. With 19 pieces of ASUN legislation between the executive team, Reem, Marlena, and I, in addition to our entire slate, we have the proven leadership required to make effective, long-lasting change for the student body in our positions.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Reem Ahmed, and I'm currently a junior studying psychology and nutrition health sciences with a public policy certificate. I'm immensely lucky to be running as internal vice president with some of the most qualified leaders on this campus with Ascend. As a Black Muslim woman at UNL who has grown up in Lincoln and spent my whole life around this university, I've experienced firsthand how this institution often works against its marginalized and minoritized students. Currently serving as ASUN's chief of staff on the executive team has given me the opportunity to advocate at the highest levels of leadership for those communities that I belong to. In my time in ASUN, I have advocated tirelessly for the advancement of diversity, equity, and inclusion, not only across campus, but within our organization. As a senator, I facilitated critical conversations on ASUN's response to international crises and advocated and actively worked to support affected students through this work. More recently, following the closure of the university's Office of Diversity and Inclusion, I spearheaded ASUN's extensive advocacy by collaborating with RSOs to hold administrators accountable to their students, ensuring that we remain a priority. We believe that prioritizing students happens through inclusive representation. It is undeniable that ASUN is the premier advocacy organization at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. It is crucial that we, the leaders of this organization, reflect the diversity of this campus community that we serve. This is why inclusive representation is a core value of our campaign and is exemplified by over 50 dedicated members on our slate. Representing every corner of campus through their involvement, experiences, leadership, and academics, we are confident that Ascend UNL can effectively advocate for the students that we serve.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marlena Saalfeld, and I am a sophomore studying secondary education and political science. I'm excited to be running for external vice president because I believe in a student government that listens, represents, and takes action for all students. Currently, I serve as a senator for the College of Education and Human Sciences and chair as the Equity Grant Selections Committee. Last semester, I was a member of the FCLA Appointments Board, helping select the next cohort of campus leaders, and during my freshman year, I was a freshman campus leadership associate myself. Beyond student government, I am the Vice President of Future Teachers of Color Club, an NHRI leadership mentor, and a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. My involvement across campus has given me the opportunity to connect with students from all backgrounds and truly understand the issues that matter to them. I have made it my mission to authentically advocate for those voices no matter what. With the Office of Diversity and Inclusion being shut down, the need for strong student-led advocacy has never been more urgent. Has never been more urgent. That's why I worked closely with administrators and student legal services to develop the Student Bill of Rights, a document outlining students' rights.
Thank you, Marlena. Your time has run out. I'm so sorry. You did great. Thank you. Okay, awesome. Thank you all for your opening remarks. Sorry about the shutting down on time. That's kind of how I'm going to be calling that out for the rest of the debate, just for the rest of the candidates to know. I have a timer here, but it's not making a super loud noise, so I will probably ask you to stop. I thank you all for your cooperation. I know that's a little sticky. We will now move on. We will now move on to our initial questions. Each ticket will have 2 minutes to respond to each of the opening questions. We will start first with Catalyst again. Our first question is, what will be your main goal while in office?
So the most important and broad overarching thing that we want to do taking office is increasing transparency between ASUN and the student body. We want to post our meeting agendas, minutes, and finances publicly. We want to create bridges between ASUN and underrepresented voices, bridges between East and City campus, bridges between students and faculty and staff. But really, at the end of the day, one of the things that we want to invest most in is the organizational health of ASUN. We want to foster an environment where senators can come and desire to come to Senate every day or every week and choose to think creatively, think outside the box, come up with new legislation. And as the executive team, our job is not to micromanage. Our job is to inspire. Our job is to motivate. Our job is to push forward the members of ASUN that want to give back to their community, just as we do. With us at the helm of the executive team, ultimately, we would expect to see higher retention in senators throughout ASUN, increased involvement from the student body through engaging with committees, standing committees that have been stagnant for some time, and increasing collaborative efforts in programming with university faculty and staff. That is what we desire for ASUN in the coming year, to rebuild our student government for the better and to give back to students in a meaningful and tangible way. Thank you.
All right, we will next hear from our independent ticket. Same question to you. What will be your main goal while in office?
Yeah, I think I'll probably have mic problems all night, so sorry about that. So I want to start by saying that when Jack reached out to me to run with him on this ticket, I was incredibly surprised. While we are the two most vocal members in the Senate as it stands now, Jack and I routinely disagree. I really showed up to that meeting for fun. I wasn't sure what he wanted to talk about. However, very quickly during this meeting, Jack said something that is a long-held belief of mine and that he touched on earlier in his opening statement, that leaders surround themselves with people that they disagree with to work towards the betterment of the overall community. This is something that we often are not seeing within ASUN as it stands. A lot of folks, like Jack mentioned, are hand-selected by just a few people, and we don't think that that's right. So ultimately, I was intrigued by the offer, and I found that we agreed on some of the most important things. One of the first things that we agreed upon is that ASUN is not a student-facing organization, and it needs to be. a lot of this work has been done and is being done by me with events, active talking to faculty and administration from the very first semester that I was here before I was even an at-large senator. While in office, our three main goals are to stop the climbing of student fees, to modernize the outdated alcohol policy, and to create support within ASUN for RSOs and Greek life. Each of these policies are grounded in the Husker experience. How we can make that experience safer, more transparent, and community-based. However, regardless of policy, our biggest goal is to make ASUN finally in touch with the student body. This way, every Husker can know, be proud of, and feel
Thank you, Emma. Your time has run out.
That's okay, thank you.
Yes. All right, next, same question to you, Jade. What will be your main goal while in office?
My main goal while in office would be the insurance of protections of the students' constitutional rights, the right to protest peacefully and the right for religion. And with that is making sure that the resources that we have on campus and resources that need to be made within campus are accessible, that students actually know that they could get this sort of aid or help. Along with that, of course, would be the safe spaces for students to have a conversation about any issues they may be facing or to come together with a new community. There is a lot of push for the student body to be more included within ASUN. A good way to do that is by allowing new people within ASUN to see more people who have not been within that space before or were in a specific niche before then would be a increase for that sort of want.
Perfect, thank you. All right, and then finally, same question to you, Ascend. What will be your main goal while in office?
Our main goal is to use the expertise that we've had from our positions to authentically advocate for students. Our policies are meant to be long-term investments for our students. First, we want to give student regents the right to vote. We believe that you as students are the biggest stakeholders here at the university. You pay almost half of the tuition, you pay almost half of the revenues of this university through your tuition, and yet you don't have a say on the Board of Regents. Secondly, we want to protect DEI resources for students to give them an environment that they're allowed to thrive. Third, we want to implement a free and reduced Uber Safe Ride program, allowing students to get back to home safely and enjoy their college experience with the peace of mind that they can get home. We also want to implement a Grammarly Premium expansion, building on the work that we've done in our current positions. And last, an RSO President's Roundtable. We believe that ASUN should be interacting with RSOs not only during the election season, but all the way throughout the year. As we saw with the closure of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, there's times when ASUN needs to hear feedback from RSOs, and there's not a structural way to do that. So we would implement that on day one. Overall, we want to create a productive organization where we're empowering all of our senators to undergo projects that they can actually complete. There's been an issue through ASUN of past, and I think that's something that we can admit, of projects being started and not being finished. I think that's something that we want to change. Through our biggest initiative, giving student regents a vote, we do want to allow for the student voice to have more power. A big point of this election is more people in ASUN, and I do think it's important to recognize that us as Ascend, we've brought together a group of students that represent more student groups across the university than any of the campaigns or any of the groups that you see here. A lot has also been said about the use of SEGs. The ability to actually build a cohesive group and a group that represents multiple parts on campus, SEGs are really important to that process, and through that we've been able to unlock parts of campus that aren't typically represented in ASUN.
Thank you, Luke. Your time has run out. Thank you all. We will now move on to our second opening question. I would like to remind candidates that rebuttals will be issued once we start to move into categories. We will all allow you each to have a 30-second rebuttal at the end of each category, and I will also grant 15-second rebuttals at my discretion during those categories as well. Our next question, and we will start with Catalyst again. Experience and engagement with the UNL administration is an integral part of being in student government leadership. In what ways does your platform differentiate you from other campaigns, past and present?
You know, I can't really talk about past campaigns, but I know what we will do. We will be positive, professional, and transparent. For example, I've worked with administrators all throughout my college career, whether that's meeting with D.D. Anderson from the start of our campaign, making sure that we know what administrators need, to being an assistant to executive vice chancellors working on events all over campus, such as drafting notes for new students entering campus, or even both my mentors and supervisors from working in the Multicultural Center, Emmy Rosa and Rhonda Taylor. Our campaign is prioritizing a strong relationship with administration because we are stronger together than we are alone. The key difference between Catalyst and other campaigns is the genuine desire to involve staff and faculty. As a student government, our jobs can either be amplified or stifled by university administration. We firmly believe that our campaign is prioritizing a strong relationship with administration because we are stronger together than we are alone.
Thank you. Same question to you, independents. Experience and engagement with the UNL administration is an integral part of being in student government leadership. In which ways will your platform differentiate you from other campaigns, past and present?
Yeah, I think that there is no other campaign that has as diverse or as widespread when it comes to the executive level of leadership. I was the 2024 homecoming coordinator, something I'm really proud of. It was the most successful homecoming in the last 10 years from a student participation standpoint. Emma consistently works with the CAPS, CAST, and CARE office. I'm an RA in Abel Hall, and that is something I'm very proud of. I don't think that there is a single person on this campus who is better equipped to advocate for everyday Huskers like an RA, like someone who is holding their residents' hair back at 2 a.m., like someone who is up with them at 11 because they're crying and they're homesick, or like someone who, yes, at times has to enforce policy. There is no one who understands what everyday Huskers need. There is no one who understands what everyday Huskers want out of their experience at UNL like an RA. Before I even was involved with FCLA, so I was in Freshman Campus Leadership Associates my freshman year. Ben and Misha were my directors. I love them both dearly. They were some of my most important mentors on this campus, and I appreciate them running for their respective positions. But before I was involved in student government, I applied to be a senator, or applied to run as a senator in the Residence Hall Association. The Residence Hall Association is our second biggest by budget organization on campus. And I think it is ridiculous that ASUN has never collaborated or never wanted to reach out towards them in any meaningful way. I fundamentally believe that we are stronger together. And a key part of our campaign is bridging the gap between RSOs, other student governmental organizations like the African People's Union, like the Mexican American Students Association, to bridge that gap because ASUN, right, we're stronger when we're supported by those around us. And that's something we're going to prioritize on this campaign.
Thank you, Jack. Your time has run out. Same question to you, Jade. Experience and engagement at the UNL administration is an integral part of being in student government leadership. In which ways will your platform differentiate you from other campaigns, past and present?
Right. Like I said before, I am a completely new face to ASUN with a new perspective. I hope to advocate for the underrepresented groups within ASUN, including that of the grad students and the STEM students. But I am also not ashamed to learn from those who are more experienced. I am more than happy to reach out to those with that experience because they had worked hard to get that sort of experience. I would hope to be a listener and a learner, like I am in college, to eventually be able to have that knowledge in order to spread it.
Thank you. And finally, same question to you, Ascend. Experience and engagement with the UNL administration is an integral part of being in student government leadership. In which ways does your platform differentiate you from other campaigns, past and present?
Yeah, absolutely. As we kind of briefly touched on earlier, I think a really good example of our team exhibiting this is when the Office of Diversity and Inclusion shut down. Luke and I are currently part of the current exec team in ASUN, and ASUN was put in a critical position to respond to a decision that was widely opposed by most students. While ASUN has the most direct access to UNL leadership and administration, our primary responsibility is to you, to the students. You guys are the ones who are electing us. That means we need to hold administrators accountable when their decisions undermine student interests. Our executive team does not only have the most experience engaging with administrators from all levels of leadership, not only on campus, but at the University of Nebraska system level, but we've also built strong professional and strategic relationships that ensure that we don't only meet with leadership and have conversations, but we can challenge them, push them for change, and secure real outcomes for students.
Thank you. All right, our last question from our initial question group today. We will start with Catalyst once again. Multiple campaigns reference that ASUN isn't working. Can you speak to a change that you think is working or isn't, and what needs to be adjusted or changed?
I believe that ASUN is functioning, but it needs to be revitalized to be more effective. Currently, every senator is expected to work on their own student-led project, but with the many responsibilities that come with being an elected representative, working on a solo project can be very overwhelming. Last semester, we had many meetings where there were no pieces of legislation to discuss, or if there were largely resolutions of support. The first piece of legislation that enacted tangible change was introduced in November. In addition to legislative responsibilities, senators are also required to serve on one of ASUN's standing committees, which meet outside of our weekly meetings on Senate. However, over the 2 years I've been a senator, there has rarely been a meeting where every member could attend. This inconsistency makes it difficult to ensure meaningful progress. To address this lack of legislation and to strengthen our committees, we need to shift our approach. To be more effective, we work better as teams than individuals. So we would propose that every committee would work as a team to ensure that we have more impactful, meaningful legislation. Each committee is expected to introduce well-developed pieces of legislation to ensure greater impact on campus. Additionally, we would restructure our Senate meeting schedule to ensure that all senators are able to attend their committee meetings to guarantee attendance and improve coordination. This allows us to keep a better pulse on what initiatives are being worked on within ASUN.
Thank you. Same question to you, Independents. Multiple campaigns reference that ASUN isn't working. Can you speak to what you think is working or isn't, and what needs to be adjusted or changed?
I think a lot of things work with ASUN. That being said, we argue, if you saw in our campaign video, that we say that ASUN is broken. ASUN is a vacuum chamber. It very often is the same people running for re-election year after year after year. That is a problem. And it's due in part to the student election groups. But taking a step away from that, one definitive change that we championed, and we're the only people talking about on this campaign, is definitive Greek representation in ASUN. Now, there used to be Greek House delegates to ASUN. They overtook the system, and then what do governments do? They overcorrect. It's time for us to give the organizations on campus that drive culture, unlike any other group, a firm say in ASUN. So we're proposing delegate systems from the IFC, the Pan-Hellenic Association, the National Pan-Hellenic Council, and the Multicultural Greek Council, all to serve as delegates or advisors to the president that advise us on policy matters that are important to students, that are important to Greek houses, and that are important to Nebraskans. A second thing that we started talking about first, I may add, is the creation of an RSO advisory board. For way too long, ASUN, including in this term, the external vice president has not only not worked with our RSOs, but has chosen to actively ignore them. And I think that that's a real shame, right? Clubs, Greek chapters, they are the things that make the college experience so great. And ASUN does have resources. We do meet with administrators. We do have funds. And it's time we start to reestablish that ASUN is the place where students can go for help. And that's one thing that we're proud to champion for change.
Same question. Oh,
Do I get a response to that?
yes, Luke, since you are the external vice president, you can respond. I will give you 15 seconds.
Yeah, I do categorically disagree with the assertion that ASUN and the current administration has not interacted with RSOs. We've made it a priority, especially in terms of Ream's advocacy with the Office of Diversity and Inclusion Town Hall, that we're interacting with RSOs.
Thank you.
That have
Your
been
time has run out.
Okay.
All right. Same question to you, Jade. Multiple campaigns reference that ASUN isn't working. Can you speak to what you think is working or isn't, and what needs to be adjusted or changed?
Yeah, the overarching thing that needs to be changed is, in my opinion, what ASUN is and why or how it's important to the student body. I honestly had no idea what ASUN was until a little bit more recently in the past few semesters. As a freshman, I had no idea whatsoever. So just making information about ASUN more accessible to the student populace in general would be a huge step in the right direction. As well as that push for more inclusivity within ASUN, so more people that haven't traditionally been within student government, more people from different specific groups within the campus.
Thank you. All right, finally, same question to you, Ascend. Multiple campaigns reference that ASUN isn't working. Can you speak to what you think is working or isn't, and what needs to be adjusted or changed?
Yeah, so like any organization, we can recognize that ASUN, we can recognize that we are not perfect, and we are working to ensure that all students are represented. So kind of like what Luke was saying about the RSO roundtable, right now there is not a structural way for ASUN to be connected to RSOs on campus. So that's why on day one, if we get elected, we want to pass legislation where there are RSO roundtables where RSOs and Greek organizations have the opportunity to come to us and talk about the real needs and how we can support them. And I think that's especially important for multicultural organizations in Greek life, and obviously all students and all RSOs as well. Another thing that we notice that might not be working is delegating to the Senate. We want to empower senators to run more programs, and we want them to feel like they can run long-term projects that will make sustainable change for students and not just single-time events that happen. And I also wanted to hit on something that Ben said. He said that there has not been a lot of legislation that was passed. And I would just like to know, in his time in ASUN, he has only passed one bill. And in the time that Misha has been in the ASUN, she has passed 0 bills. With that being said, there are a lot of things that are working for ASUN. We provide a multitude of services for students, like student legal services, which is important more now than ever, and then also the readership program as well. And then another thing that we should be proud of as ASUN is the fiscal responsibility. We maintain some of the lowest student government fees across the Big Ten.
Thank you. Ben and Misha, since you were both mentioned by name, I will give you both 15 seconds to respond each.
Okay. Yeah, I believe that tackling individual legislation is overwhelming. I've experienced that in my 2 years as student government. I think that fostering collaboration among senators is better than doing the approach that the current executive team, which was threaten senators' positions within student government if they didn't work on their own personal legislation. That is why.
Thank you. Your time has run out.
Thank you.
Our current exec team was mentioned.
I will do Misha first, and then you all can respond.
I just want to let everybody know that I dropped within the first weeks because the lack of culture within current exec team, and that's why I'm running. So thank you for the mention.
Luke and Reem, you have 15 seconds to respond.
And for the entire year before that?
I was FCLA director.
Right. Also a senator.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, candidates, for your answers. We will now move on to focus on the 5 key issues that are facing the UNL campus this election season. We will ask each ticket a question, and each ticket will have 2 minutes to answer, similarly as we did with our initial questions. After each topic, each ticket will be given 30 seconds for rebuttal, and similarly 15 seconds to respond to a direct mention at my discretion. Our first topic is campus affordability. We will start again with Catalyst. How would you work with university administration to address tuition increases?
Yeah, so we just want to start by saying that tuition increases are incredibly complex, right? They involve the state and national funding, operational cost increases, inflation, all that stuff. And there is some of that student government can't control. However, what we do think that student government can do is work with the Nebraska legislature. UNL is a huge part of our state. In a large way, it drives our state. And we, as Catalyst, desire to lobby to legislators and show them that the University of Nebraska, keeping young, bright minds in the state and attracting new bright minds from out of state is absolutely crucial to our state economy and our state success. And so we want to do that by having a UNL legislative day where ASUN members attend the legislative session and they work with state senators to lobby. I don't know what that sound is, but that's what we have.
Thank you. We don't know where that sound is coming from either, but we have some tech people on it, so thank you for your patience. Same question next to our independents. How would you work with university administration to address tuition increases?
Yeah, I think Libby kind of hit the nail on the head there, is recognizing what levers of power we might have and utilizing those to the fullest extent. I will say how she describes lobbying is interesting. We do have a government liaison committee, and they do great work. Our chair, if he is here, I don't believe he is, Carter Greer, has done nothing but great advocacy work on behalf of the student body for ASUN. That being said, understanding and tackling tuition increases with a realistic frame of mind, understanding that tuition is going to have to go up, particularly right when the legislature seems so hell-bent on erasing protections and resources for students at Nebraska.
Thank you. Same question next to you, Jade. How would you work with the university administration to address tuition increases?
Yeah, so I think that coming from a STEM background, the data, numbers do not lie. So what we could do is look where we are spending too much money and finding out more sustainable alternatives to different alternatives for that cost.
Thank you. Finally, same question to you, Ascend. How would you work with university administration to address tuition increases?
Yeah, it's a really important question for students. The university and other universities across the United States are experiencing extreme budgetary shortfalls, and this is due to a variety of factors at UNL, previously declining enrollment, inflation coupled with decreases in our state appropriations, and a possible loss in federal funding. Obviously, the bills do need to be paid, but the student regent role actually does play a good place in priority setting for the administration. So some things we would go and talk with administrations about is we don't need bloated administrative load in different departments. Students don't want to see dramatic increases in their tuition bills. They want to see steady increases. Students also don't want to see programmatic cuts that threaten the reputation of the institution. So within our positions and within the student regent position, we'll advocate for a budget and an allocation of resources that ensures that this remains a competitive, thriving, and affordable institution of higher education, not only for Nebraskans, but also enough so that we are able to compete for students outside of Nebraska and draw in new students and new talent. I completely agree with Libby here that working with legislators is especially important, and I think the Student Regent Initiative is especially important to that. If student regents have the right to vote, the power of students and the power of student governance increases dramatically. Our ability to meet with legislators and exert that kind of influence increases dramatically. I do think I have the experience to do that effectively. In my freshman year, I was a legislative page. In my second year as a sophomore, I was the government liaison committee chair. And the advocating day that Libby does mention does exist. It's iHeart NU Day, and it's on April 2nd. So I hope everyone does attend.
Libby, I will give you 15 seconds if you'd like to mention it.
Yeah, so iHeart NU Day is something that does exist. However, it's not a serious lobbying event. The university mascots are there. There's ice cream social. We don't think that it's a serious enough lobbying event to consider it an effective.
Thank you. Your time has run out. Thank you all. Our next question is, how would you improve financial aid awareness for students? We will start again with Catalyst.
So there are already programs in place that address financial aid accessibility. The primary one being Husker Hub on campus, which is the Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid for UNL. They're a tremendous resource for all students, and one of the most effective ways that we can address awareness about financial aid and promote services that Husker Hub already has is by making it so that we can shift it so the academic committee can promote the scholarship programs and opportunities within the ASUN website and on Instagram pages so that students can fully know all their opportunities with addressing financial awareness. Thanks.
Thank you. Next question to you, independents. How would you work with the university administration to address tuition increases? Oh, that's the same question again. Sorry, guys. How would you improve financial aid awareness for students?
Yeah, so I want to preface with I'm speaking as a full Pell Grant student, a student that greatly benefits from the FAFSA. And although there are resources on this campus and we should do everything we can to elevate those resources to students, it's not enough if ASUN is not a part of it. As the voice of the students, we have an obligation to you to meet you where you are as people, as students with a need. So with that being said, we want to start a financial aid and FAFSA week during the period wherein the FAFSA starts to open, so during that first month, to help to educate students on what they can do, help them with the application process, even though it has gotten a little bit easier recently, and what your options are and how you can explore those. The FAFSA is difficult, and even though it's easier now, it can be scary, particularly for first-generation students or students who are coming in from out of state. We believe that the week being held around this time would not only remind students, but elevate the resources that are currently on this campus. We can collaborate with those resources, and ASUN support you further in the way that we are elected to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question to you, Jade. How would you improve financial aid awareness for students?
As with what Lindsay said, my heart goes out to her as well. I am also a student who greatly is impacted by the FAFSA, and just getting that information out there and accessible, especially to families. I remember sitting in the living room, completely stressed with my mother. I was the first child to be going off to college, and it was really hard to get through this FAFSA and figure out what we needed to be doing and what all we had to give information-wise to them. So just more informational pamphlets, flyers, even videos to help parents and students who are doing it by themselves to be able to get this sort of aid and grant that they need. I would also even propose grants and aid scholarship page for the UNL site. Everything is right there, accessible, explains to a T what this would mean, and also accessibility in different languages.
Thank you. Finally, same question to you, Ascend. How would you improve financial aid awareness for students?
Yeah, we absolutely understand that there's a lot of anxiety surrounding financial aid given the changes at the federal level. But we also acknowledge that ASUN is still a group of students. It's not our role to duplicate services that professionals on campus are already working towards that mission. So some other groups have mentioned Husker Hub, which we absolutely acknowledge the importance and the value of it, and we believe that we should leave that work to them. We should not be the ones helping students with FAFSA. We are qualified, frankly, to do that. We also want to mention one of our campaign members. Maddie Beasley is running for senator for the College of Arts and Sciences, and she is one of the founders of the Low Income Student Task Force, something that she was able to do in her freshman year. And she's worked towards advocating for educational affordability and just campus affordability throughout the different costs that college students incur. In our turn, we want to renew the Low Income Student Task Force and ensure that Maddie and the rest of her team have all the resources to continue the committee's important work.
Thank you. Thank you all. We will now provide a 30-second rebuttal period for each ticket. We will start again with Catalyst. If you'd like to add anything, you don't have to if you don't want to.
Nope, we have nothing to add.
Perfect. Nothing from Jade, anything to add? Ascend, anything else to add? Perfect. Thank you all. Wonderful. We will now move on to our second topic, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Our first question, which we will start with Catalyst again, how would you bring the UNL community together when we're facing change in DEI policies and regulations?
Yeah, this time is more turbulent than ever for DEI initiatives, and it is extremely important to be vigilant and find ways to enact positive change within DEI. But from a national perspective, we have to recognize that we have to work within the system and be vigilant in that regard. We have to adapt verbiage. We have to be mindful about the ways that we can progress to progress DEI in general. So Catalyst and hopefully everybody in this room can fully agree that we want every single student who attends the University of Nebraska to feel like they belong here. Regardless of their race, religion, ethnicity, they belong. And we think that events are one of the ways that we can bring every single student together on campus to encounter one another. We want to partner with campus nightlife, increase homecoming, like Jack said. He did increase engagement last year. We want to continue to increase that engagement. Also, we want to reinvigorate the Big Event and Earthstock, which are both ASUN programs that have been underutilized in the past as a way to bring campus together and serve the greater Lincoln community.
Thank you. Jack, I would give you 15 seconds to add something, but it's your turn, so I will give you 2 minutes. Same question to you. How will you work to bring the UNL community together when we're facing change in DEI policies and regulations?
I think there's first an elephant, or at least there's an elephant to address between Emma and I in the room. There's supposed to be a third person up here with us tonight. Her name was Veronica Sarba. She's not dead. But due to I'll be honest, it was probably my misunderstanding of our requirement rule for executive candidates. We thought that UNO credit would count towards that requirement. It is Board of Regents policy that does not. And we found that out today, which I thought was convenient, an hour before the debate. But that being said, our messaging around this was rooted by Veronica. And so I want to pay her homage there. But generally, we contend that this shouldn't be a campaign issue. To believe in the power of diversity and how that makes us stronger, to believe in the power of equity and inclusion, that should be a precursor to being a student leader, and it should be a precursor to running to be the next student body president or internal vice president. Of course, we will do everything in our power to protect marginalized student groups. It is, when we talk about diversity, it's not just diversity of race or diversity of religion, it's also about diversity of thought. And ASUN usually gets into a very hive mind-like style, and we all think the same. And if you do think differently from one another, you're criticized by the group. So that's something that we want to combat. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are tenets just like democracy, just like justice. And they should be a tenet to everyone in this room.
Thank you. Same question to you, Jade. How would you work to bring the UNL community together when we are facing change in DEI policies and regulations?
Right. So like what was said before, there are certain things we can and cannot do in accordance with the current Nebraskan government. However, this does not mean we cannot provide knowledge. The accessibility to knowledge is powerful. Access to resources and safe spaces and a built community with like-minded people or a want for a better community is our best bet when dealing with issues that involve the removal of DEI.
Thank you. Finally, same question to you, Ascend. How will you work to bring the UNL community together when we are facing change in DEI policies and regulations?
Yeah, so our campaign fundamentally stands behind diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think there's a lot of misconceptions on how that looks like on our campus. It's not beneficial to rename these services and kind of hide them away or shuffle them under a different department just to kind of make those in higher positions happier. I think a big thing our campaign is standing on is, although we absolutely understand that the university has to follow the law, we are insisting that we make sure that administrators are not making any preemptive cuts. So we're doing that already by having regular conversations with administrators about the stability of UNL programs, given federal changes, making sure that the programs that these individuals in this room, people in ASUN, us and up here are utilizing are not going away. And if they are being renamed, how are we still keeping visibility and access to them the same? And then we have extensive experience on ensuring that DEI is something that we speak loudly about. Like we mentioned earlier, the ODI Town Hall, which is something that I spearheaded in the response in general to the Office of Diversity and Inclusion shutting down. Marlena worked on the Student Bill of Rights, which is still a document that students can utilize and is going to be sent out to freshmen at new student enrollment. We have clearly a ton of experience advocating for DEI. We know that we are kind of in new terrain with things at the federal level, but we want to ensure that these services do not go away and they aren't hidden from students, and the access to them is not jeopardized by the work that's happening politically and through bureaucracy at higher levels. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, we will start with Catalyst again. How would you ensure diverse student voices are represented in university decision-making?
To increase transparency, awareness, and engagement amongst the student body, we propose hosting a leadership summit that brings together representatives from all the registered student organizations and campus groups. This event would serve as both a listening session, and it would allow us to understand what concerns students have across campus. It's an opportunity to educate RSOs as well about the resources that ASUN provides. Additionally, the opportunity to do a summit would allow all of us to recognize what student groups are not in attendance, and we can be intentional about reaching out to those organizations who do not have a seat at the table to speak at ASUN. Additionally, as mentioned earlier, in regards to focusing on transparency, we want to post our weekly Senate agendas so organizations who are impacted by our legislation can come and speak at open forum. While campaigning to students, these last few weeks, there have been many students who are unaware of what ASUN is, and we are committed to changing that in this next term. Beyond increasing awareness, the summit would foster stronger relationships amongst campus leaders and provide a platform to discuss key issues across campus.
Thank you. Same question to our independents. How would you ensure diverse student voices are represented in university decision-making?
Sorry, y'all. So I want to start by saying, though I believe town halls are an excellent way to gather community and discuss what is happening, I think there is more to be done within ASUN when things like an important office or change is made that supports our diverse communities is forced to close. There's no question that identity-based RSOs like MASA and APU, other faculty offices that could be affected or possibly help this issue or an issue, and other student groups should be contacted to discuss changes, concerns, and needs. With that said, we plan to create a board of the RSO executives that meet with the ASUN president often and always, making sure that we meet RSOs where they're at as students group to serve them and to hear their diverse voices and experiences on this campus. And then further, the Greek delegates that Jack talked about for the IFC, the MGC, the PHA, the NPHC, all of those would be, excuse me, my goodness, all of those would be serving at the pleasure of the president to advise on their needs and concerns. So really anybody and everybody that we can talk to ensure that these voices are seen, whether that's having an open door policy, directly posting when we are available within the office, and just overwhelmingly being available to the student body, both as being open and honest and transparent, as well as coming to them directly to ask them for their opinions, their voice, and their experiences, and how we can be a part of helping uplift their voice.
Thank you. Same question to you, Jade. How would you ensure diverse student voices are represented in university decision-making?
Yeah. Just that open talk with senators and the student body, an open conversation and reminders of speaking your thoughts with a no critical judgment zone. However, I do understand how that can be very intimidating, especially if it's something that might be a little bit more personal, or you're someone who doesn't have that sort of want to necessarily have your name attached to specific things. So I think a nice alternative would be creating a forum to submit issues anonymously.
Thank you. Same question to you, Ascend. How would you ensure diverse student voices are represented in university decision-making?
Oh, okay. I wanted to make sure I turned it on this time. Yeah, so something that Ascend is something that we are proud about is the fact that Ascend represents over 80 plus student organizations here on campus. We have been making it a point to connect and outreach with registered student organizations, other governance bodies like our Residence Hall Association, and all of the Greek councils across campus. Through these conversations, we have organized we have recognized that there are corners of campus eager to join ASUN in the next term. So if elected, we will stay connected with these contacts throughout the recruitment process as there are over 100 appointed positions that we will be looking to fill. Something that I will take on potentially as external vice president is making sure that I'm going to organizations at the beginning of the year to encourage higher participation in ASUN. I feel like oftentimes ASUN can seem scary to some people, but just being able to have that executive representation and connecting to different RSOs, specifically a lot of specifically multicultural RSOs and NPHC and MGC Greek councils, and especially we want to make a point that we're reaching out to all of them. I feel like APU and MASA is getting tokenized a lot right now, but we want to make sure that we are reaching out to all multicultural organizations.
Thank you. We will provide a 30-second rebuttal period for each ticket. Catalyst, if you would like to add anything.
Yeah, Marlena talked a little bit about how she's recognized that many people want to be involved in ASUN through connecting with RSOs through the campaigning process. And we just ask, why was that not done this year? As your term of EVP, Luke, that was something that you had the ability to do and did not.
Yeah, I'll give you 15 seconds to respond to that, Luke.
Yeah, so I think one thing to recognize is that the ASUN administration does go to events of multiple registered student organizations all the time, and we make it clear that we are active on campus, present on campus, so I just flat out disagree with that. Thank you.
Jack, 30 seconds.
Yeah, so both of the two most prominent SEGs take a lot of pride in the fact that they have people in their campaign that come from 80 different student organizations or 100 different student organizations. But I would urge you all, and I'd urge you all watching, to ask yourself why that makes them uniquely qualified to be a leader. We're going to endorse a lot of their Senate candidates and a lot of their grant selections committee and committee candidates. But why does that make them more equipped to lead? Because the reality is that it doesn't.
If I can also get a response to that.
Yes, 15 seconds.
Yeah, so when we're talking about access to ASUN, the way that we teach people about ASUN is that you have a conversation with someone you know who's in ASUN. If we're touching the most spaces of campus, more people know about ASUN.
Jade, you have 30 seconds to add anything that you would like.
Yeah, I guess my question for everyone at the table was, what other sort of events would you be looking to do other than just going specifically to RSOs, especially for, I'm thinking about the transfer students who are very new and the freshmen?
Yeah, we'll start with Catalyst. I'll give you each 15 seconds to respond to that.
One of the things we want to do is increase engagement early on at new student enrollment. There's opportunity to do that within new student enrollment, and that hasn't been utilized in the past. We're prepared to do that this summer and get students early on and engage them.
Thank you. 15 seconds to you, Independence.
Yeah, so this is something I've actively been doing since I started my work within ASUN. All of my events bring resources to people, to faculty, to offices, and as a transfer student, it's very important to me that more events are happening to support any and all folks on this campus and student populations.
Thank you. All right, and then 15 seconds to respond to Jade's question, then we'll get back to Ascend.
Yeah, so we absolutely agree that there should be more student events held by ASUN. I think that that burden of that kind of comes to our slate members who are having a various amount of ideas, and that's kind of why they joined ASUN, is that they saw a gap, or not ASUN, Ascend, they saw a gap of something that they wanted to do through their RSO, and they want to kind of utilize ASUN's connections and resources to do that. And so I think that that's kind of where, if elected, it's kind of where our direction would be.
All right, and then 30 seconds to wrap up the debate.
Yeah, so I think a big takeaway that I've learned through this position through External Vice President, because of the closure of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, is that hiding resources and complying is cowardice. Us as students, we have a lot of protections that many other professionals and administrators here at the university don't have. Rolling over and not using our voices is not acceptable if we're elected into these positions and we have so much protection.
Thank you. That concludes our discussion on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. We will take a break at 7:45 for those observing Ramadan, but I would like to keep moving just to an interest of time. So we will start, but we won't be able to finish discussions on the next question. So I just want to acknowledge that we will probably only make it to Catalyst and our independent candidates on this question before we take our break. Our next question is on sustainability and environmental policies. It is, what concrete steps would you take to reduce the university's carbon footprint? We will start with Catalyst.
So we all know that Nebraska is an agricultural state. I come from a small town, and I farmed 125 acres of my own farm ground in high school. That being said, UNL is also a land-grant university. Our state economy is completely impacted by agriculture, and as student government, we think that we've been completely underutilizing East Campus. We want to bring the agriculturists to the table. We want to work to create a community garden on East Campus and utilize composting in dining halls on that garden. We also just believe in small steps towards sustainability. So when we met with the Office of Sustainability, the biggest piece of information that they gave us is that it is all about small steps. One of the things that a lot of students don't know about is the Bike Link program. That is a program that has not been marketed well in the past, but it only costs $25 for students and faculty to get a yearly pass to Bike Link. So those are like the bikes that you see around campus. And ultimately, we think that by increasing marketing and working with what's already happening, that's what we can do. And by promoting those existing programs and working with the Office of Sustainability and the Environmental Leadership Program as well, we want to revitalize that. We don't want to try and reinvent the wheel, but we want to work with what has already happened, and we believe that that is one of the ways that we can decrease the university's carbon emissions.
Thank you. Same question to our independent ticket. What concrete steps would you take to reduce the university's carbon footprint?
First, I think it's important to preface that this current administration, some of whom who are running for election to higher offices, tried to get rid of the Environmental Leadership Program, tried to get rid of ASUN's only governmental body and only organizational group that fights for environmental literacy, that fights for environmental policy changes on campus. And I just think that's important context. We are proudly the only people talking about the fat squirrels. We do have a squirrelhood obesity problem on campus, and it's because of the trash cans. Right? They don't have lids. And as much as I love to make fun of them, and as much as I love to see the fat squirrels, it is time that we do something about that. Trash cans with lids, not a revolutionary idea, but a simple step in the right direction to keep litter off campus and to keep our wildlife, the squirrels who we love, healthy and safe.
Riemann, Luke, I'll give you 15 seconds to respond.
Right. We did believe that a reorganization of these programs was the best. The Senate voted against us, and you know what? We're willing to change our minds and revitalize that program. That being said, we're the only campaign up here that's introduced an ELP director. None of the others have. Also, that's untrue. We have an ESC and a Green Fund.
Thank you. Jack, I'll give you 15 seconds.
Yeah. The director of the ELP should be an applied and a position that is appointed after you win. It should be open to all the student body, not just those who you think would make a good leader.
Okay. We have reached our 7:45 breaking point, so we are going to take a 15-minute break. When we 10-minute break, we are going to resume after this. We will let our candidates finish our questions on sustainability, and then we will conclude with our final topics. Please come back at 7:55 when we will resume the rest of our debate. Thank you.
Yeah.
Give everyone a couple of seconds to file back in. No rush. Just so everyone knows that it is 7:55. Yay. Perfect. The executive candidates can head back up to the stage. That would be wonderful. We are going to start again here soon. Our live stream is still going, so. All right. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for coming back. We appreciate you and your attention. I hope everyone had a good break, got to grab some food. I know I stood up here and ate a protein bar, so hope everybody else got to do the same. We are going to wrap up our questions on sustainability. We're here from our last two tickets. We will go through our 30-second rebuttal period for each party, and then we will move on to our last two topics for the evening. After those few questions, we will then be providing time for questions from the audience. So that should be in about half an hour, 40 minutes from now. So thank you for your patience. I'm sure our executive candidates are excited to hear from you. So I'm going to start once again with that question back to Jade. You have 2 minutes. What concrete steps would you take to reduce the university's carbon footprint?
Yeah, so, there we go. Maybe. Oh, there we go. Okay. Again, I've said this like 3 times already. I'm sure you guys are getting bored of it, but the data. What do we spend on and produce that could be switched to more sustainable alternatives? And no, that sounds very simple when I say that. Of course, there's a lot more that goes into it. And how to get into that is, why don't we just work with the majors that is their whole mission? The environmental science, biology, anyone who has a passion, agriculture, anyone who has a passion for this sort of thing, why doesn't ASEN just bring those sort of people in and work together? This also just brings the student body closer together with the student government.
Thank you. Our questions to Ascend. What concrete steps would you take to reduce the university's carbon footprint?
Yeah, so as part of our amended carbon neutrality bylaws from this term, we will direct the Environmental Sustainability Committee to compile and share our organization's carbon footprint with the Office of Sustainability. And this will allow us to create a way to create accountability to our organization when it comes to travel. If elected, our Environmental Sustainability Committee will also take an active role in ensuring that the reports produced by the university are timely and accurate. Also, in the past, there was a referendum, which is just like a question on the ballot that the students vote on during the ASUN elections, where students actually voted against the balloons being released during Husker game days. So if elected, we will continue to hold administrative accountable, because that is not what students want to see happening.
Thank you. Right. We will now move into our 30-second rebuttal period for this topic on sustainability and environmental policies. We will start again with 30 seconds to Catalyst. Perfect, thank you. All right, next on to our independents, 30 seconds.
Yeah, we just want to touch on the balloon thing very quickly. I think it's important to recognize that Troy Dannon, our athletic director, has made progressive steps to make sure that the balloon release is more sustainable, as opposed to doing it at every home football game, doing it at 2 football games. And I think that is a Husker tradition that all Huskers love. And I think that protecting those Husker traditions is really, really important. So we would actually encourage the athletic department to continue that program.
Thank you, Jack. Your time
that
is
was
running.
more sustainable, in a more sustainable way.
Thank you. All right, Jade, if there's anything. Jade, if there's anything you'd like to add?
Nothing from me, thank you.
And then Ascend, 30 seconds.
There was a previous conversation about the ELP director that we appointed. It's been found in past years that it can be hard to identify this student. We know that Carter in our Senate has shown a lot of dedication to sustainability initiatives here on campus, and we wanted to identify him early so that he can actually begin his work in the spring semester when elected instead of at the beginning of the fall semester. We believe that this will best run the environmental leadership program, so that's why we decided to appoint him, or presumptively appoint him early.
Thank you. We will now move on to our fourth topic, which is campus safety and immigration status. First question, back to Catalyst. How would you ensure that international students feel safe on campus regardless of their immigration status?
As a child of 2 Iranian immigrants and an immigrant myself, we believe that creating a safe and inclusive environment for international students, regardless of their immigration status, is a priority. One way to achieve this is by promoting the use of student legal services as a trusted resource. Not only can they provide guidance on legal rights and protections, but it's also funded by your student fees. They are here to help us. It's also essential to remember that there are laws in place to protecting students' privacy. We need to reinforce that staff and faculty understand and respect these laws. Additionally, having a dedicated and easily accessible website and social media that serves as a centralized resource center is crucial. It can be a one-stop shop that provides information on everything from legal assistance to campus support services, while also redirecting students to external resources if necessary. Ultimately, our goal as Catalyst is to create a campus where every student feels safe, valued, and empowered, regardless of their background or immigration status.
Thank you. Our question back to our independents. How would you ensure that international students feel safe on campus regardless of their immigration status?
Yeah, I'm currently working on a project through Student Legal Services and as a senator in the Association of Students and as the vice president of the Abel Sandoz Complex Council to develop a Know Your Rights campaign with the university. ICE and the executive administration at the federal level has made it clear that they are targeting college campuses. We have policy to deal with this, Executive Memorandum 43, and making sure that students know that if they come across an ICE officer, that their best course of advice and their course of the advice of the university is to call UNLPD. UNLPD is in a much better position to advocate for students when it comes to dealing with ICE enforcement officials. And so we want to expand. Obviously, I'm going to continue to work on that project regardless of the outcome of the election. But we want to make sure that all students, regardless of where they come from, regardless of their status as a citizen, regardless of their status as a visa holder, know that ASUN will protect them, and that we think this project is a good first step towards that goal.
Thank you. 2 minutes to you, Jade. How would you ensure that international students feel safe on campus regardless of their immigration status?
From my experience with working with the Global Office in Lewis Pound Hall, they're a great resource that I would love to work with more closely. That inclusion of safe spaces for international students to have those specific conversations and to feel like they can without any sort of information being leaked fully confidential. Any informational media, and this includes all of campus informational media translated to native language. I have personal experience with something like this. I had studied abroad in Osaka, Japan for 2 months, and I had made a pledge with my organization that I would only speak my second language, which was Japanese. As someone using their second language and reading their second language all of the time, it can be really stressful when information is not fully clicking for me. So I can understand how having a translation to your native language might just make things a lot more accessible and for you to fully understand what you are reading.
Thank you. And finally, to you, Ascend, how would you ensure that international students feel safe on campus regardless of their immigration status?
Yeah, I think that ASUN and student governments really across the United States are going to play a really strong role in making students feel protected, especially during this time. I think the past few weeks have shown that students are understandably afraid to work with university administration, given recent events at Columbia and other universities. So I think that's the first thing to acknowledge, is that we do play a really important role here. I think the best approach that ASUN can make is to signal boost resources for students about how to interact with ICE. SLS has some of these resources, and they've been working on developing even more of them as they expand their capabilities for immigration. They have an immigration, I think they're calling it a pilot or a beta program right now, where they're trying to increase the services that they offer in that area. We'd also want to work with administration to limit record keeping for international students, because we've seen that one of the main strategies that ICE is using with universities is to compel information to be given by universities. So we want to limit the amount of information that they're actually collecting. So if compelled, they don't actually have it to give over. And secondly, we've been very intentional about building a group that has a variety of life experiences, including international students. So we would take in their perspectives that they give us about their experience here on campus. I think student legal services and the role that they're going to play in this question can't really be understated. I do think that it has to be mentioned that some of the student fee decreases that were proposed by Burgess over here would implicate student legal services. There's no way to decrease to the level which he advocated for without cutting student legal services and the essential services that they provide to students, especially during this trying time. Thank you.
Jack, I'll give you 15 seconds to respond.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, that's just not true. There were multiple proposals in committee that used more of our reserve account now, representing a sense of fiscal responsibility, as opposed to a double-digit fee increase, which we'll talk about a lot next.
We will now have, would you like 15 seconds?
Which would put us into the negatives.
Not if this hasn't been a problem that's been created by administrations for the last 3 years. We can just keep going if you want.
All right, we will then move on to a 30-second rebuttal period in general from each ticket. Catalyst.
We have no rebuttal.
Perfect. Our independents, you have 30 seconds. Perfect. Jade? Wonderful. Ascend?
Nope.
Wonderful. Thank you all. We will now move on to our last topic, which is government spending and student fees, as we just mentioned. Our first question will be given to Catalyst. How would you involve the broader student body in decisions about major spending initiatives?
The increase in student fees enables ASUN to operate in a way that directly benefits students by passing legislation which can enhance our university experience in various ways. That is why I want to revisit our idea of working on legislation as teams, because it is through our collective goals working together where we can enact stronger, tangible change on campus. Our goal is to pass meaningful legislation that drives positive change for students, and I want to ensure that our campaign will prioritize efficiency in utilizing student fees and remain fully transparent in our actions. We provide change through legislation. The stronger the legislation, the better the students are served. That is what we will get out of the 12% increase in student fees, and with the Catalyst term, we can guarantee that we will be efficient with all funds and that we will be transparent with how funds are being utilized.
Thank you. Same question to our independents. How would you involve the broader student body in decisions about major spending initiatives?
I agree a lot with what Catalyst just said. I think that the question was about how to increase student voice into these options. So we are proudly the only group of candidates that are talking about expanding the committee for fee allocation approval process. And so what we envision that look like looking like is the RSO advisory board that would be formed under our term, in addition to the ASUN Senate, would also have to pass the fee proposal that would then be recommended to the Office of the Chancellor or the Office of the Vice Chancellor, where applicable. And so that is a concrete way that we can increase the amount of stakeholders, or at least the voice of the stakeholders that are involved in the fee process. I think there is a lot that we can do to increase ASUN's presence on campus. One proposal I had this year, as the only person on this stage who has ever served on the committee for fee allocations, I was like, let's get food at the CFA town hall. That'll get students in the door. Even if it's for the chicken, I promise you they will give their opinions on student fees. And that project was shot down by this administration, and that's unfortunate. I think we have to recognize that we do live on a college campus. Getting people into events, getting people into spaces where they can advocate for themselves does at times require responsibility, or does at times require incentives. And so we are, like I said, proudly the only people who would work to expand the Committee for Fee Allocations approval process and working to get concrete voices of student groups that are outside of ASUN involved in that decision.
Thank you. Jade, same question to you. How would you involve the broader student body in decisions about major spending initiatives?
So again, just that accessibility to info about the proposed decisions, where this money is specifically proposed to be going, so the student body knows where the money is being spent. Allowing the students speaking directly to exec board senators, ASUN body with feedback openly without any sort of judgment. Polls or open request forms, again, as that alternative. I understand it is very nerve-wracking to go up to people you don't know. And open house events. The College of Engineering does this as well. It's called Talking with the Dean. And I would love to do that for the student government, something like that. Yeah, and just so that to discuss decisions that are currently being processed and to bring new topics to light.
Thank you. Same question to you, Ascend. How would you involve the broader student body in decisions about major spending initiatives?
Yeah, absolutely. We think that that is the function of the Committee for Fee Allocations. When recruiting members for Ascend, we built a slate that came from various different organizations on campus. I mean, it's something we've been harping on all night. Instead of the traditional College of Business students, we have made sure that we have representation across colleges and across organizations, different corners of campus, so they can reflect the needs of students from various areas. I think another example of involving student voices in that decision process is something that we've already been doing. So presidential candidate McDermott is piloting the Grammarly Premium program, and that's something that he's worked tirelessly on this year, and that is something that requires major funding from ASUN, but he's also ensuring that he's getting a lot of feedback on how the program is going, ensuring that students are actually utilizing this, if we're going to spend a good chunk of money on it, ensuring that student feedback is consistent and seeing that this is something that ASUN would actually want to invest its money on in long term. So that's just an example of how we've been able to do that in our current term and something that we will turn over if elected. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to our next question, starting with Catalyst again. Given the recent 12% increase in ASUN student fees, how will you ensure these funds directly benefit the student body?
The increase in student fees enables ASUN to operate in a way that directly benefits. Oh no. Sorry. To ensure that the broader student body is involved in decisions about major spending initiatives, transparency is key. That's why our team has developed a slate in each college that is prioritizing open communication so that every vote can represent all of UNL. One of Catalyst's pillars is transparency, and we believe in meeting students where they are, whether that's through in-person events that create comfortable, accessible spaces for discussion, or online platforms that provide convenient ways to share input. We plan to enhance the way our weekly meetings are run by posting minutes and agendas on our website, so every student can stay informed about what's happening in our Wednesday night meetings. Additionally, we aim to create a section in the website dedicated to polls and surveys, giving students a direct line of access.
Thank you. Same question to our independents. Given the recent 12% increase in ASUN student fees, how will you ensure these funds directly benefit the student body?
Yeah, so we did encourage other folks in Senate to vote yes on the student fee proposal. While unfortunate that it has to be 12% now, student government wouldn't be able to function otherwise. However, a vote for Jack Burgess and I ensures that a student fee increase of this amount will not happen again through meaningful collaboration with offices on campus, faculty on this campus, and students on this campus. And I do want to note the spending of student money should be considered at any amount. Whether as a senator I'm looking to spend $5 or $5,000 of student fees, I believe that every single student on this campus should be eligible to benefit from that and or be able to come to an event that serves that. In regards to how we ensure these funds directly benefit the student body, a lot of this work will be done preemptively. So working with RSOs before this money is ever spent, working with Greek Life before this money is ever spent, working with the student body and students just like you and I before this money is spent. So talking to folks, coming to folks, and welcoming them into the ASUN meetings as well as the ASUN office to discuss what do you need on this campus? What are you seeing that you have need for? Further, I have incredible relationships with so many faculty offices on this campus. Going to those faculty offices and hearing what are students looking for? What are students needing? What are students saying while they're in this small office, this large office, whichever office that I'm talking to this person in, that they need, that they're seeking, that we could help. I think in any way, in any shape or form, collaboration is perhaps the most important thing in regards to building a community and supporting that community throughout our term. This is something that we're dedicated to, both in our work in the past, the present, and in the future, whether or not you choose to elect us.
Thank you. Same question to you, Jade. Given the recent 12% increase in ASUN student fees, how will you ensure these funds directly benefit the student body?
Yes, just having that open conversation about spending. I can understand when you look at an increase in student fees and the first thing you do is just sigh. I completely understand that, especially as someone who does not have an income at the moment. But just having that open conversation and being open to hearing out the voices of students is a great first step. The main goal should be putting money back into the UNL community with hope of betterment.
Thank you. And finally, same question to you, Asun. Given the recent 12% increase in ASUN student fees, how will you ensure these funds directly benefit the student body?
Yeah, fiscal responsibility is something that's been really important to both this current administration and the one that we intend to enter. So that 12% or $1.50 increase for students of ASUN's fee, we're going to use rigorous examination of how those fees are being used, and that's something we've currently been doing. Bang for your buck is something we actually really do care about. And while we are talking about fiscal responsibility, not bringing chicken to the CFA town hall was due to it being $900. Jesse and Marlene shot that down. We prefer spending that money on maybe the lawyers of student legal services than chicken at the town hall. So in our current terms, especially for the Grammarly program, something that we're really looking at is how students are going to thrive using those resources. And we believe that that's something we want to push for the student body because we think that is a great use of student fees. We'll get an almost 90% discount if we use an enterprise license. Another example of us using fiscal responsibility, the Uber Safe Ride program. We were really passionate about restarting our Safe Ride program, but we wanted to have it not be a large cost for students, and that's why President Herbin went to the Board of Regents, advocated for alcohol sales at Memorial Stadium, and now we have $100,000 from Husker Athletics to run a Safe Ride program at no cost to the students. I got some more. On expanding the committee for fee allocations, I think anyone who's been on the committee for fee allocations can absolutely attest that it takes a lot of onboarding to do that process. To expand it to an 80, 100 person body is really just not reasonable. And also the idea that this increase will not happen again. I do think that it is a it was a strategic multi-year plan that multiple ASUN administrations have been working on to actually decrease our reserves to make sure that we're spending money most effectively for students. And the rhetoric that's being pushed on the stage right here is a weaponization that of the audience not knowing that multi-year plan. Thank you.
Thank you. "15 seconds to you, Jack, to respond."
Yeah, I think it's irresponsible to suggest that these people don't know that plan. Students at Nebraska have a right to be upset about the largest fee increase of any fee user. Students at Nebraska have a right to be mad at student government.
Thank you. All right, and our final question on this topic, we will start again with Catalyst. How would you justify or adjust the recent fee increase if elected?
Yeah, we want to build off of that. This is a plan that has been set in motion years ago. After COVID, ASUN was sitting on a reserve of around $700,000. Because that reserve fund was so long, student fees have been held at a flat line. They've not been increasing for several years. They knew at that time that eventually student fees were going to have to increase because we're trying to create equilibrium in the budget so that we're pulling no longer from the reserves, but working based off of student fees. However, I think that students are frustrated because they don't know where their money is going. So over the past few years, a lot of this reserve fund has been going towards pilot projects enacted by previous executive teams, including Grammarly and New York Times subscriptions that we would argue doesn't benefit the entirety of the student body. I think it was an easy way to spend money that enacted some sort of tangible change, and student fees should be used in a meaningful way. However, I do also want to say that Uber is a great program, and I think that that will be utilized well. That has already passed in the Senate, and that will continue. Even if Catalyst executives are elected, that plan will be pushed forward. So ultimately, we say that we should be creating traditions and hosting events that will change campus for the better, even after we are all gone, not buying subscriptions for only some students. Thank you.
Yeah, if I can respond to that.
Yeah. 15 seconds there.
Yeah, a big part of the conversation in this debate has been engagement with ASUN. The New York Times game subscription is a benefit for any student who votes in the ASUN elections, that they will be able to receive a New York Times game subscription. You guys presented a problem, we actually presented a solution. So I think you'll see
Thank you.
Based on engagement rates. Yeah.
Can I respond to that?
15 seconds there.
Yeah, I would venture to say that we're going to see increased engagement in the election because there are multiple campaigns running, not because people are getting a subscription to New York Times games.
Two things can be true at once.
Yes. All right. That same question is going to move next to our independents. Sorry. How would you justify or adjust the recent student fee increase if elected? 2 minutes there.
I want to be very clear. To everyone who's watching at home, to everyone in this room, I encourage you to vote yes on the ASUN fee proposal. ASUN needs money to survive. We need money to operate student legal services. We need money to pay our staff. That being said, Emma just said it. You know, a vote for Jack Burgess and Emma Lindsay is a vote to make sure that a 12% fee increase is not on the horizon again. I think it's irresponsible to suggest that we cannot become more fiscally responsible with how we manage our money as an organization. For those of you who may not know, one thing that our administration would be looking to cut to amend the bylaws is to make sure that the chief of staff position, which was in an unelected position appointed by the president, receiving student fees. They earn about $4,000 a year. They earn hourly. We suggest that Student Life should offer them a scholarship just like they offer the internal and external vice presidents and the president of the student body. That'd be a lot more fair, and that would ensure that student fee dollars are not going to pay for an unelected student, however meritorious they may be. As Libby pointed out, the Safe Ride program was great work by the urban administration. I would argue their best. That being said, the Senate has passed it. And the contracts are being negotiated on right now, albeit by external Vice President Luke McDermott. That is a program that I think everyone on this stage, regardless of who is elected, would continue. That money from Husker Athletics is a blessing, and we thank President Urban for securing that for us. Snaps to her for that. But that is not a program that would stop under any administration, in my opinion, particularly mine. And so I think it's a bit irresponsible to suggest so.
Yes, Reem is the current chief of staff. For those who don't know, I'll give you 15 seconds.
I think it's important that we have at least one member of the executive team be hourly paid, because there's crises that happen in our team all the time that the rest of the exec team can't add to their burden already. For example, the website needs to be completely redone, the current ASUN website, and the rest of the 3 executives are busy with their current loads, and I'm the one who gets hourly paid and can take something on because I can get paid for my time.
Perfect. Next question, back to you, Jade. How would you justify or adjust the recent fee increase if elected?
Like, I have said this so many times, but just that advocacy for an open conversation, I cannot push that enough. Our student body and our student government just need to have those sort of conversations. They just need to talk about where they want their money to be going. And if we get the money going where people want, there is more of that work together. We all come from different backgrounds, we come from different places, but ultimately we are all UNL students, and we should all strive to be working together to make a betterment for UNL.
Thank you. Same question to Ascend. How would you justify or adjust the recent student fee increase if elected?
Yeah, I think presidential candidate Libby Wilkins really put it well. We understand that no students like to see a fee increase. We're students too. We understand that those increases aren't ideal, but again, these increases reflect cost of living, wages, inflation, and it's a strategic decision that was made because we wanted to deplete our funds so that we didn't just have a chunk of money sitting around that wasn't being used for students. In order to stabilize the budget, yes, we did increase. Burgess will tell you that these increases won't happen again. Again, I ask that people prod him. Mathematically, there's no place to make that up without cutting our administrative staff or cutting student legal services, both of which are essential to the functionings of this organization. Grammarly was mentioned. I do want to mention that this has been a highly popular program, especially amongst English second language students and graduate students who need these resources to increase their research output, which could help us get back into the Association of American Universities. Also, New York Times Games was mentioned. Again, I think you'll see how successful this program is, both, again, because of the competitiveness, but yes, more students will be voting because they have that added incentive. There's been a lot of conversation about incentives. This is one. And then the Uber program, which I do want to talk about a little bit. Yes, we have that money from Husker Athletics, and whoever gets elected is going to have that money to do with how they please. But there is something to be said about experience and skill. I've been negotiating this program for a long time now. I have the know-how to know how it's going to work. I've seen how past administrations have tried to go about it. We can all sit up here and claim to do the policies of one other or the lack thereof, but it's really about showing that you have the experience to do these things, that you actually have produced results for the student body, and that's what we bring to the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack, 15 seconds to respond.
Can we get 30? Because it's like the...
Would you like to wait? I'll just let Libby go first then, if we're cool. Perfect. Libby, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think that it's just important to talk a little bit about how cognizant Catalyst is of student monies. And one of the ways that we did that is this year, our slate, or every senator on our slate did not pay a penny to be involved in our campaign, whereas the Ascend campaign and other campaigns potentially did encourage or tell their slate that they needed to pay to be a part of it. We didn't want any part of that. The executive team decided that we were going to pitch in money so that there was zero barrier to entry.
Thank you.
We care about student fees.
Just a clarification. No student
15
on our
seconds on that.
campaign was forced. It was a donation that we asked for because we are 100% student run. Thank you.
Jack, 30 seconds.
Yeah, my name was mentioned by Ascend, and they spent a lot of time talking about their experience. But again, as the only person on the committee for fee allocations, as the only person who has been through that process, no one is better equipped, no one has better experience to advocate for a structured use of your student fee dollars like me and like Emma.
Thank you. Jade, 30 seconds. Anything to add? Perfect. And then Ascend, 30 seconds.
I think that about covers it for us.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Thank you, candidates. That is the end of our questions. We will now move on to questions from our crowd. I would like to have everyone who has a question for our executive candidates come up to the microphone right over here. I would love it if we could start a line behind the microphone, maybe headed up these stairs, just to keep the line, organized. And Maddie, my editor-in-chief, will do a little line management over there for me. If the crowd could try to keep, I know definitely a little more relaxed time, okay time to talk, but just quiet enough voices that we can clearly hear your peers who are asking questions, just for their sake and for the slate's sake. You can go first and then introduce yourself to the candidates and then take it away.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Mariah May. I am currently the executive mentor for the African People's Union, and I'm also a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And so my question is generally just for anyone, everyone across the board. So as you guys know, there has been a lot of backlash for student protesters, especially at Columbia. And so I kind of wanted to ask you all, how are you guys going to provide protection for students who have protested in the past, who will continue to protest in the future, and to protect them from administration overreach or an attempt to stop student protesters in general, outside of providing them with the Student Bill of Rights?
Catalyst, we'll start with you, if you'd like to say anything.
Certainly, we believe in freedom of speech, and we absolutely believe in protecting student voices. And I think that ultimately, a lot of working with administration comes down to being able to have personable, relatable conversations. I think that sometimes as student executive leaders, we come in and we come in biting. And I don't think that that's the way to, working with organizations and protecting student voices. Most administration ultimately cares about students. That's why they work here. That's why they care. That's why they are here. And so we would want to work with university administration to protect all safe and reasonable protests. Yeah.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from our independents.
I'll push back on that a bit. The university administration always works in favor of the majority, not the minority. And so they are looking out for the majority. And oftentimes, marginalized students are the ones who are protesting. They're the ones who are fighting tooth and jaw, something. There's an
Tooth and nail.
Thank you. There's an analogy there I was looking for. They are the ones fighting for their right to exist. So we will certainly stand up to administration when it counts. But to actually answer your question, I think it's important, yes, to encourage safety, but also to encourage our administrators to understand that it's their actions that led them here, and that, yeah, they are overreaching and they are overstepping if they are collaborating with police, if they're collaborating to tear down student movements. So know that when you vote for Jack Burgess and Veronica, I'm so sorry about that. When you vote for Jack Burgess and Emma Lindsay, you're voting for someone who will stand up to administration when it counts and protect our constitutional and inalienable rights.
Jane? Go for it. Nope, you got it, Emma.
And I do want to mention, because it's important context, so through my work as a senator, I'm also the person for the representation of this campus for the Freedom of Speech and Expression Committee on the Association of Big Ten Schools. So I am actively already collaborating with other folks on all kinds of different campuses to hear what is happening on those campuses, how they are approaching things, how I can help with that mission of protecting our freedom of speech and expression. I say it all the time. I believe it. It's the First Amendment for a reason. And in every room I'm in, I will advocate for the protection of students, the protection of this incredibly important right, yeah, just continue to speak with everybody around the country that is part of the ABTS to continue to collaborate and work together to continue to make sure that students are protected in every way.
Jade?
I am someone who really does try to put myself in other people's shoes. However, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know personally how people different from me experience these type of things. That would be very stupid to do. I constantly am working within my academy, which is that advocacy and support of minorities and women, specifically in STEM and engineering. I have seen how to go about this, how to ask people for their voices, to be constant in being like, hey, is this something we should be doing? What do you think about this? Because this is something that affects you specifically.
Thank you. Ascend?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I want to say I don't disagree with Libby. I think we have great administrators here at the university, and I do think they have the best intentions of students at heart. That being said, tensions do arise based on world events, many things that are happening in higher education. Like I said earlier during this debate, we as students have a lot of protections that administrators don't, and us as student leaders need to be using those protections to interface with administration, to be loud voices for students who might not know how to navigate administration, and that's the approach that we would be taking. I think another thing that's been really concerning when looking at other universities across the United States right now is the use of protest spaces and the way that protest has been confined to specific areas. I will say here at the University of Nebraska, we've been fortunate enough that such a restrictive policy doesn't exist here, but we want to make sure that that doesn't come up. I also think it's important that we revamp our protest policies because, especially something that we saw as there was a lot of protests related to incidents in Israel and Palestine, is that there wasn't a lot of clear policies, and that caused tension between the administration and students. So we want to make sure that those policies get revamped. And kind of as like a final thematic statement, protest is a part of the student experience. It's been a part of the student experience for a long time, and we support it happening on campus.
Thank you. Anything else? Perfect.
Okay, I'm realizing I'm like really short for this.
I think you can move it.
Okay, lit. Okay, hi, my name is Jennifer Castle. So I've noticed homecoming was mentioned a few times, and as the former associate and head of homecoming along with Jack, I am interested about this desire to change because I know I've personally done a lot already to make changes in the process in homecoming, and I want to note the biggest problem of the way points were handled and when there shouldn't have been an issue in the first place.
Catalyst, we'll start with you if you have anything to add. Oh, okay.
No, it's for everyone.
Libby?
Yeah, then I'll start. I want to say thank you for your work with homecoming. I think that it has increased in engagement over the past year, largely because of your and Jack's work. I think that Battle of the Bands was a great addition. I think that I do think that there are ways in which we can actually create homecoming to include alumni in a way that is real and tangible. So working with the WIC Alumni Center, working with registered student organizations, Greek houses, to make alumni events over homecoming. If you have all those people in town for homecoming, you're more likely to get alumni engagement, alumni and student interface, as well as simply just having more events that would include the entirety of campus and potentially incentivizing homecoming in a way that is potentially even monetary for different registered student organizations.
Jack?
Yeah, okay. To first address the Alumni Association, Homecoming used to be almost exclusively ran by the Alumni Association, and I think a big reason that Homecoming was so successful this year is because the Office of Student Life took the lead role in that. So I definitely think that we can have more engagement with the Alumni Association. Shelly Zabrowski is the executive director. She's great to work with. And then to address the things that we can make Homecoming better, I think that having student voices early on in the process, Jennifer, you're asking this question, but you know this answer. That was not an attack, by the way. That sounded aggressive. But for the rest of you, students get included in the homecoming process very, very late. So I'm thankful to President Urban for starting to nudge the new homecoming directors in the right direction. And then to make a quick point, there was a mishandling with the points. I take full responsibility for that. There were a number of different groups that we were working with at the time, and it was very, very difficult to monitor when certain Google Sheets were closed and when they would continue to edit them. And then there was a decision that we made that would basically allow students to gain as many points as possible in the food drive. We believed that that was more equitable when it comes to how we counted points, and that did lead to a substantive change. I recognize now that that was not the best decision to take. I take full responsibility for that decision, but I do think that we have made notable strides in that next year students aren't responsible for counting the points of homecoming, and I think that's really important because I don't think it was a job that we should have ever had in the first place, particularly without any institutional support when how we navigate that system, if that makes sense.
Jade, anything you want to add?
All I would like to say is thank you so much for the hard work you do for such a crazy big event that is homecoming. I may just be one of the student faces in the crowd, honestly having nothing to do with the planning, but I just am blown away every time I see it, especially as a freshman. That really made me feel at home at UNL when I'm 2 hours away, and I was so incredibly homesick. So I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for making that such a great experience, and especially for the Battle of the Bands part. As a former music kid, that just makes my heart sing. Thank you.
Ascend, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, first and foremost, I want to credit this idea to where it deserves Carly Davis, who's currently a senator, but it's something we've been talking a lot about, and it's something we fully support and want to push forward even after she leaves the university. It's that we want the homecoming process to be a lot more accessible to different houses on campus. She brought up an issue that she noticed where a few houses had kind of institutionalized the royalty process and had taken all the questions, remembered them, given a lot of pointers. So we wanted to figure out a way to revamp it and make sure it's accessible to all different chapters on campus. So that's something we want to explore during our next term.
Thank you. Anything else? Perfect.
Hey, my name is Elizabeth Herbin. I'm the current student body president and student regent, and my question is to all the presidential candidates. There's been a lot of talk of the student body president mechanism of this position. However, as the person who currently occupies the role, a lot of my time is spent collaborating with the Board of Regents. So if you could please explain what you believe the daily functions of a student regent are and what qualities you bring to the table as a student regent.
Libby, we'll start with you.
Great. I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of people see the external-facing student body president role, but really the student regent is the person who is advocating on behalf of the student body to the Board of Regents. I think that I am great for this role because of my work. As I stated in the introduction, I've worked with state FFA, if you're familiar with that, and I was able to connect with a lot of people within the organizations that are top businesses throughout the state. There are several of the regents that I have connections with. I'm not on a first name basis, but have connections with, and just the ability to collaborate not only with them, but also to collaborate with the other student regents. That's something that I've already started doing, is collaborating with other student regents across UNK, UNMC, and UNO. And I think that ultimately a lot of being the student regent is being able to connect with the people on that board. And I think the way you do that is just by creating dyadic relationships. You're not in there to press an agenda, you're in there to have good conversation. And when you have good conversation, they want you to be at their table. They want you to be an exclusive member of their events. And when that happens, you have more say, more pull. If that answers your question.
Jack?
Thank you for the question, President Urban. I think I do want to actually just press back on this. You're not pressing an agenda as a student regent. When you're elected as a student regent, you are elected as the voice of UNL. You're the voice of 24,000 Huskers that look to you to speak for them. So you certainly are pushing an agenda. You're pushing the agenda that all Huskers matter, that everything that the students want at Nebraska or that we should fight for is something that we will fight for. So I think that that is an important distinction between how we view our role as student regents between Libby and I. But to actually answer your question, you mentioned the day-to-day, and I've heard you talk about this a bit, but a lot of committee meetings right within the Board of Regents. I know you spend a lot of your time preparing for those meetings. I know the student regent spends a lot of time reading about all of the albeit boring policies at times that change. But I think another thing I'd like to touch on is there has been advocacy out of your administration for a voting student regent, and I congratulated everyone who works on that project, who will continue to work on that project. But I don't think, like the Uber thing, it's not exclusive to one ticket. It's not exclusive to one thing. I think I can recognize certainly that was strong work from you and EVP McDermott to get that on the ballot and to fight for that system. That being said, that is something that we would continue to fight for. I started having conversations with state senators and former student body presidents about this project in particular in August. And so that's why I was really excited to see it on the floor a couple weeks ago. But yeah, when you talk about what qualities one has that makes them a good regent, I don't think leadership is bound by what qualities you have as a person. I think there are certain things, being more organized, being on time, that make you more credible. But I think having, kind of the idea that when you speak for 24,000 Huskers, and exercising constraint, particularly when it comes to very hot button social issues, and realizing that you speak for 24,000 Huskers and not all of them agree on one project or another. The role of the student regent, though, is mostly to provide a student voice, and we would continue that project of getting an actual voting voice on the board. But yeah, thank you for your question, President Urban.
Luke?
Yeah, first and foremost, I'm really happy that there's so much agreement on the student regent vote initiative. I do encourage everyone on April 1st and 2nd on the ballot question to vote affirmatively, that you do believe that the student regent should have a voice. I will say just slightly that I think there's something to be said about campaigns and people that have actually been working on this initiative already, and the experience that we have in talking with administration regents and state lawmakers on that issue. To get to the core of your question, the regents are really involved in strategic decision making for the entire board level. It's about really making sure that the campuses, that the entire system is rowing in the same direction, to use the words of Dr. Gold. And I think that we have a lot of experience with that, this team, with operating with administration. I think that we've learned a lot about kind of the limitations of administration because of the Board of Regents, kind of the interplay between the two. Yeah, I think that's kind of one of the big overarching purposes of the Board of Regents. There's also the setting policy piece of it, making sure that there's synergy between the different campuses and making sure that we're collaborating together is a big purpose of the Board of Regents. And obviously, talking with you a lot, I hear a lot about the Business and Finance Committee, so I know a little bit too much about that. And then I do agree, it's a political position, and there's a need for understanding of that. I think especially in these positions, we see that sometimes there's tension between what's happening at the federal level, the state level, the board level, and the campus level, and then even down to the student government level. Understanding how to navigate when there's a discontinuity between all of those things is a really important piece of the student regent role, and I think it's one that really thanks to you I've learned a lot about. But really, the student regent role is about connecting back to campus. All of the 8 elected regents, they're elected from different parts of the state, and they all have great perspectives, but they're not students. And it's about projecting the student perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, in the interest of time, we are going to have the people who are already in line be the only ones to ask questions. We have kind of a line going. Candidates, if you could try to keep your response to a minute or under, just so we have adequate time to answer all of these questions, because all of these students have been waiting here patiently, that would be awesome. I can give you a minute cue over here if you'd like me to. Also, students in line, if you have a specific candidate that you'd like to address your question to, you're also welcome to do that. So.
Yeah, hello. I'd like to address Jack Burgess. Regarding your position on the CFA, several times you have proposed a legislative initiative to advertise what student fees are spent for. As chair, I've encouraged this idea once it was in writing and proposed to the entire committee, yet it has not been given as of now. As presidential nominee, you claim to be transparent, yet as a member of the CFA with the power to do so currently, you have not done so for the CFA. Why not make the effort to be transparent in your current position?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I appreciate it. That's simply not true. ASUN only pays for I think we can get access to 60 days in back files for our legislation. The LIFT Act, which stood for Leading Informed Fund Transparency or Fee Transparency, would have required all fee users, and it's still something we're working on, still something we can work on in this Senate session, so maybe it'll be my legacy legislation, but yeah, it was in the SLAC at one point. We only pay for, you can only go back 60 days. So I kind of reject the premise of that question. And then talking about transparency, I think, is really important. When our former chair resigned, Tori Kokenauer, the Speaker of the Senate promised me that there would be an open interview period for chair. That never happened. As you know, you were selected as the chair. You've been a great chair. I applaud you for your work there. It's a lot of work, and I thank you for that, and I think we all should. And again, I'm sorry, Josie, but another thing that I want to talk about transparency is the committee vote. The committee vote did fail after all the Committee for Fee Allocations members had voted. The administration worked behind the scenes to tank that, or to switch that vote while having a shifting goalpost. And you know what I'm talking about, the student body may not, but it's interesting that you ask about transparency, obviously as a member of the Ascend campaign, when there's some questionable business of things that go on in the Committee for Fee Allocations.
Luke, would you like to respond?
Since it does implicate the current team, Wyatt Schnazi, who's very qualified, was selected to be CFA chair after the former CFA chair resigned because Speaker Kadena reached out to Tori, who resigned, and asked who was the most qualified person to take over, and she overwhelmingly endorsed Wyatt. Thank you.
I actually have 2 questions. Can I just do one, or?
I mean, if you can be quick with both of them.
Okay, I'll try.
I want you to have your voice heard. I just also want to make sure we get to everyone else.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. So my name is Ashani Karki. I'm a current FCLA member, and I'm also on SMP, which Emma co-chairs. So my question is, it seems that there is a lot of agreement on the lack of legislation that is being passed in the current Senate. What do you guys think is contributing to this lack, and how is this currently trying to be fixed with the current Senate, not the presumptive Senate for next year? And why isn't whatever you guys are doing to try to do working, or why is it not working?
Is that directed at us?
I would assume so.
It was kind of for everyone, since I know there is a lot of senators on the campaign as well who are running. But
yeah, we can go for that. Libby, do you guys want to have anything you want to say there?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I've been a senator for the last 2 years, and I think the difficulty with why there is a lack of, I think, tangible impact with legislation is because of that expectation, like I talked about earlier, where every senator is expected to write their own piece of legislation. That's an overwhelming thing for senators to do. And I think the way to combat that is to work as teams going forward, right now, a lot of the legislation we do experience is resolutions, which are just acts in support of something. And I think that doing resolutions isn't really a tangible way to say that we made an impact. I think it's just a way to not make it so that we have tangible change on campus. So I think right now that is the reason why there's a lack of legislation. Yeah, Misha.
Hi, Shawnee. I also completely agree with Ben. I think writing legislation in itself is very challenging. I think everybody here who has to write it kind of doesn't know where to start. I think we should kind of make like a workshop and before see how can we write legislation. I mean, honestly, Luke, the reason I didn't write legislation was because I didn't know how to. But I think a lot of FCLAers right now are experiencing that. I think past FCLA experiences that we need to have things in place that how do you even write this? Why are we expected to know it when we first come into Senate?
Jack, Emma.
Yeah, hi Ashani. So nice to see your face. So this is something we've talked about, right, in our own committee. I chair the SMP committee, as Ashani mentioned. This is something that's a huge problem. And so a big part of this is that right now we have people in power that are demanding that people write legislation. I understand that legislation is important. As somebody who has written numerous pieces of legislation. However, this push frightens people. And I speak from experience. As I chair committees, as I work with people one-on-one and build those relationships, people have come to me and said, I'm really uncomfortable with the fact that the executives now are pushing me to this level. What do I do? How can you help? That's not something I take lightly. Right now, although no one has seen it yet, a lot of the work that I do to support my committees, to support the people that are around me, is work that isn't necessarily legislated, although I am very legislated as well as Jack. What I will say is I am in the middle of creating essentially a Canva document to assist senators, new senators, and all the committee members that work hard on the legislation that they want to write, and they have incredible ideas to do so. We have a project handbook, and I thank Speaker Kadena for that handbook. But I think that ASUN fails to fully support new senators, at-large senators, committee members, and I speak from experience as I was an at-large senator for approximately a year last year. It's something that bothers me. I think that in every way, shape, and form, we should give people every resource we can to support them as they enter a situation that is new to them, particularly one that can be frightening. And so in general, that's a big piece of it. The fact that, you know, the big things here, right, threatening resignation if folks didn't write their own pieces or work on a project. The fact that there's not a handbook that is kind of sent around. This is something I'm also working on, but it does exist, but it has never been given to me or anybody that I know. And in general, just making things more clear and transparent, which was part of the past administration's pillar, but we are currently still not seeing that. So I think that those are like the really big reasons why we're not seeing as much legislation. Thank you for the question.
Ascend.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot to address here. So Misha, Ben, myself, and Luke were all in the same FCLA class, and our FCLA co-directors, Sophia Garcia and McKellen Clark, did teach us how to write legislation. I learned, Luke learned, we both passed FCLA bills, we all passed FCLA bills, and apologies, Ben, myself, and Luke passed FCLA bills. And then when we entered the Senate, and I guess this past year when Misha was in the Senate for a little bit during the fall semester, we did have an orientation that she did attend, and that is when you were supposed to be taught how to write legislation. Our current speaker, Speaker Kadena, and our current IVP, Zain Saleh, made an extensive presentation on how to write legislation, the whole legislative process, how to even just start from like an idea and then how to get it to the legislative stage. I think it's also important to note that the handbook is sent out. The handbook is also in the SharePoint, and that is information that was given when we first made the handbook, and then if you need access to the handbook, let's say a few months later, you know where to get to it. I think the problem is that the information is given to our senators, and it's hard to critique not having access to those if you're not asking. And so that's, I think, also speaking to Speaker Kadena, her role is to work on legislation, and when people have questions, that's who we send them to. People are not coming to her. So when it came to the point where we were like, hey, we need projects to be worked on because we are a governance body, we can't just have people sitting in the Senate and listening all day and then not doing anything. It wasn't because we felt like we were trying to be mean or anything. It was because people were not coming with project ideas, but they had a lot of project ideas, whether they ran with us or whether they were appointed or whether they were interviewed, but the projects didn't come to fruition. And so it wasn't a threat as in like, the minute you join the Senate, you have to immediately have a project. But there's people who are sitting in that Senate session or in our Senate body for months doing nothing, just coming and voting yes and going home. And so I think that's where we need to talk about being productive. And Jack, Emma, you guys are very productive, and so I can applaud you on that. But I think that misconstruing, it wasn't a threat. It was ensuring that the people who were elected are actually doing work to the students that chose them.
Cool. Are we good? Cool. Awesome.
Okay, can I do the other one real quick?
Yeah, go
okay,
for it.
this one is more so for Ascend. So I think obviously, Reem, you're an amazing chief of staff, and ASUN would not function properly without you or without a responsible chief of staff in general. But I also think that it's obvious that the rest of the current exec team, as well as probably past exec teams, have been very, very dedicated in their roles. Like Luke, I know you're the EVP right now, and I would say the same thing about you. And this goes for like any RSO and any leadership position within any RSO. So I'm a little curious as to why it is that the chief of staff needs to have a salary when I think that a lot of the current others have helped me a lot. Like President Urban, for example, helped me a lot in SMP before I really got started. Emma has also put a lot of hours in outside of when she needs to help me. So I'm just a little bit curious about why the salary for chief of staff is something you guys are really sure that you guys want to implement.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your question. I touched on this briefly, but I can kind of expand a little bit. So like we mentioned, the president, internal vice president, and external vice president are all paid by scholarships through Student Life. So that is university funding. Chief of staff gets hourly wage. Obviously, there's like a set amount. I don't just get paid infinitely. But I think that it's very important that one member of the executive team has that flexibility. So if you go in our bylaws, if you go in our constitution, the chief of staff has the least job description. That doesn't mean that there's nothing to do. Obviously, there's a lot of things that we need to take care of, and there are things that are delegated to me in our bylaws and things like that. But things also do come up. So I mentioned the website earlier. When we already have a crazy workload. It's entirely a full-time job, it feels like. And so if there's something that comes up and all three executives have a lot on their plate, you need to have somebody who has some flexibility who is still gonna get compensated for their time. I don't think it's fair to be a full-time student and then also have this full-time job and then you have like your job responsibilities, but then adding something up on top of it. So the website is a great example of that. Nobody has the website in their job description. Not even our communications committee is, it's a lot of like coding and things like that. And you don't wanna put that on them. And so instead of giving it to three executives who have full workloads, I can add it to my workload because I know I'm going to get compensated for my time instead of just doing it just to do it, if that makes sense. And so it allows the executive team to respond when there's things that come up in our duties and make sure that everyone is getting compensated properly for their time.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate all of you guys.
Hello, I'm Mallory Ringenberg. I'm an FCLA member. FCLA is currently in the process of trying to present and pass our bills in Senate with fellow FCLA members Troy Kalhoff, Leonardo Luna Duran, and Cooper Morgan. We are trying to present both an allocation bill and an amended bylaw change. We have faced weeks of delay simply because we've been misled time and time again by ASUN representatives. Will there be any effort by any campaign to simplify Senate processes to make them more accessible to students trying to pass meaningful legislation that helps the entire student body?
Who want to start with Catalyst? I believe that was addressed to the whole slate. Okay, perfect.
There you go.
Hi, Mallory. So yeah, that's actually, I apologize. That was the original bill thing that I was talking about, was FCLA frustration this year. I think as FCLA co-directors, Ben and I know that FCLA was a full-time job. We did it, we loved it. We need to make sure that FCLA co-directors as well as current exec are on the same page fully. There needs to be transparency at the highest level. Those who know how to write bills, who to redirect to, you need to let the FCLers know you can't, these are freshmen, they don't know what they're doing. So I think transparency at the highest level, making sure that FCLA president, if anybody else was a co-director, they all have the same communication. Transparency is key with that.
Jack?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I'm actually proud to be. People know me as like the one who knows all the the bylaws, or at least the freshmen think I know all the bylaws and amendments. So I was actually really proud for the FCLAers to approach me and talk about how we move from here after it was denied in committee, connect them to avenues in which they could explore alternative legislative options. And so I think people approached me like that because I'm an approachable person, like common sense. But I think that I do know how ASUN works internally, and it is a lot. I will say that a lot of the procedural things are done intentionally. A lot of the procedural things have a purpose. Our IVP, Zain Salah, who's not here, is an excellent parliamentarian. Just want to put that on the record. But anyway, I think there is a reason for the complexity of the process. That being said, we do need to do more work to make sure that we're helping particularly our freshmen understand that process and understand the reasoning behind those processes. But thank you for the question, Mallory.
Really quickly to that. Jack definitely knows more about FCLA than I do, but what I will say is, as a committee chair that works oftentimes with FCLAers, and Ashani mentioned this, and hopefully I'm not taking the words out of your mouth, but I've been told that they are not, Henry mentioned, you get training and all of these things, and that's wonderful, but I've been confided in saying that this isn't enough. Like, I need help with these really small little bits. And though she mentioned like the project handbook is available, what I was referring to was creating something that is much more intricate, much more of a, here's what you do if this thing happens. The things that we most often see in Senate. In that way, we support not only FCLAers like yourself and like Ashani, but we support people who are at large senators who kind of come in off the cuff and aren't helped. And though I do believe that absolutely if you need help, you should ask for help, I think as people who are already in student government, who have already kind of figured out these complexities, it's our job as leaders to come to FCLA, to come to new people, to come to you and say, hey, how are you doing? How can I help you? How can I make this easier for you? How can I make this an easier process for you? Because I love your ideas and I want you to prosper. And by doing so, I hope that doing those things, having that advocacy, coming to people in those spaces helps to begin that work of the important projects that you have in mind, and you can get running on it right away instead of waiting around for somebody to help you. And thank you for the question.
Hi. So first things first, I don't want to sit here and deeply criticize any sort of like senator work or any of sort of that, because I have not been a senator and I don't believe that is my place to do so. However, I do completely understand frustrations, especially if you are new to something like the freshmen. It is completely unfair to expect them to be fully knowledgeable how people want them to do it. I think the best way to go about it is first by setting up an accessible formatted structure. And of course it can't be specific because everything's different, but just something that people can grasp onto. Personally, as someone with like ADHD, I need structure. Otherwise I'm just simply lost and have no idea like where I need to go. And again, that advocacy for an open conversation where it might be a hard conversation and you might not have the words for it, but it's okay, you can be blunt. I'd rather people be blunt with me and straight up, even if it comes off rude.
Ascend?
Yeah, in a rare moment, I will agree with Jack that the procedural notes are important. We have a constitution, a bylaws, a special rules. These are long documents, but the processes that are laid out in these documents are really important to ensuring that we have institutional legitimacy and that we can operate well for students. That being said, I do recognize that, especially as a freshman, and it was the same for me, navigating all of that can be really difficult. I mean, even now sometimes it's like, okay, so this is this legislation type, that means I need to do these procedures, and that means this needs to be posted on that website. We still get tripped up by those things, and that happens to us as juniors. Like, there's probably over 500 pages of documents when you take into account special bylaws for we have like 22 different organs, and they all have their own bylaws. You could get tripped up, is what I'm trying to say. I think it's important that us as executives are accessible to you, and I think that this is kind of just like an open call for anyone who is going to be in ASUN. You are able to come to an executive, you're able to message an executive whenever you need help. And we want to be as accessible to the students as possible. So, I see a lot of people here who are running on different campaigns. Regardless of who wins, I hope you know that you can come to them. Thank you.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I am going to start timing your responses. I just don't want to keep the crowd here too late in respect of everyone's time. So please, parties, let's try to keep it to 1 minute to respond.
Hello all, my name is Rebecca Dang, and it is my privilege and honor to be in front of you today. So I just have one question specifically for the Catalyst campaign for Lizzie, and then after the response, I will open it up to the whole table as well. But basically, I am a very active member on our campus. I love being in RSOs, trying different things, meeting new people, and I'm very active in my sorority as well. So when I was at my house and I was able to speak to not only my other sisters, but also speak to the people who are on our street as well and ask them about their house announcements, I was just a little bit confused why there was a certain campaign that the Catalyst campaign was saying didn't have Greek representation when we clearly did. And also to just say the campaign, it's Ascend who were the campaign who was saying that we do have over 80 representations in RSOs, especially Greek life, but Catalyst was saying that we didn't. So knowing Marlana also was in a multicultural Greek sorority, and also that I am in a sorority and we have almost 30 other members who are in sorority, I was just wondering why the campaign was saying that we don't have any representation in Greek life, even though we literally do, and we will be speaking and pushing very hard for our representation as well in this new slate.
Yeah, if I saw that correctly, I think Ascend has 20 members of its slate that are involved in Greek life, which I think is incredible. Do you just want to clear up some confusion? We said that Catalyst is the only campaign that has IFC or Pan-Hellenic executive members. We fully understand that Ascend has other Greek organizations that are a part of it, and I think that that's an important part of campus. So.
Yes, thank you. That was just the first half. I was just wondering why the misleading information was being spread for your own benefit or to belittle other campaigns, knowing that clearly there is multicultural and national Pan-Hellenic Greek Council representation in other campaigns, not just your own.
Not trying to belittle, not trying to do
Okay, I was just checking, Lizzie.
You know what's up?
Hey, sorry. I just wanted to say, when we were doing house announcements, we never mentioned anything about other campaigns or any of that. So there must be miscommunication between what has been talked about, because we haven't said anything like to that caliber that you're talking about specifically.
Okay, I was just checking to that caliber.
We didn't. We never said anything like that. Okay. So
thank you so much for your time.
For question.
Okay, my question is for the independent campaign. Hello, everyone. My name is Lena Kuka. I'm a freshman here. Earlier, you mentioned standing up to administration when it counts, which almost implies to me that you will only stand up for protests or movements when you feel that they are worth something to you. And I'm almost concerned about this because throughout this debate, I've watched you shake your head, roll your eyes, and make faces at the mere mention of policies from other campaigns that you disagree with. Standing up for all students means backing up and uplifting student voices and our right to protest and be heard, even when your views don't necessarily align with us. So how do we as students know that you will stand up for our rights to protest and speak up even when you disagree, despite your honestly quite unprofessional responses to alternative opinions and perspectives?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And thanks for the applause, Ascend folks. I think I have always been, you know where I stand on things. And so I think that is really important to this kind of conversation. Yes, I might be unprofessional because I disagree with policies that are not rooted in reality. So as to say that I also understand that there is a distinct difference between disagreeing with someone on a policy level and respecting constitutional rights. So I'll push back on the kind of thesis of the question a bit. I would say that me shaking my head or rolling my eyes in response to a absurd proposal from someone or lack of proposal, I think is more representative of my disdain for that policy or that kind of thing. But I have made clear in this debate that I have very strong opinions about people's right to exercise their rights under the Constitution, right? Understanding that someone has the right to protest is, I think, substantively different from disagreeing on a policy matter. So that's how I would say that. And then protecting all student voices regardless of where they come from. I said that diversity, equity, and inclusion, right, are precursors to what it means to be a student leader. And I think that also means diversity of thought. And so, and one thing Emma actually talked on is Emma and I routinely disagree in the Senate. And I think that's important because I think it is really, I think it's a sign of a good leader to surround yourself by people who think differently than you. When you have the same goal in mind, that come from different backgrounds, different perspectives. So I certainly appreciate the question. But I would say that my alleged unprofessional behavior is not representative of how I would consider constitutional freedoms.
I'd also like to push back because encouraging diversity of thought means also respecting opinions you disagree with, and that behavior is not respectful. And also I'd like to ask you, as a former senator, both of you, if DEI is a precursor to being a leader, what have you done in the Senate to, I guess, empower DEI initiatives and protect them?
Good question. You can call the roll on any legislation that we have passed that supports DEI or that supports marginalized student groups on campus. I've been an active and vocal supporter of that. You can check the minutes there. Emma is actually the co-chair of the DEI committee, so I will let her answer the back half of that question.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I do co-chair the DEI committee, but obviously that doesn't mean anything without action, right? Much of my work, whether it's career or career level work or something for Senate or something for something else in my personal life, revolves around inclusivity. And I would agree with Jack that this goes into also inclusivity of thought, inclusivity of all different folks in what they think and what they believe. And I apologize if any of that felt flippant in response to other campaigns. But what I will say is that in every room that I'm in, whether that room is one that people can see or not, I'm advocating for every voice. And oftentimes, if I cannot advocate for a voice or I don't feel that it's appropriate for me to take that spot of advocacy, I will uplift the person who is best qualified to do that. In my work as DEI co-chair, I actively support the folks that work tirelessly on their events, tirelessly on the legislation that they work on, including Marlena. All of these things that, support folks in the work that they do, while also not stepping on toes of, this isn't my place to speak. And making sure that in the moments where I have time, that I'm uplifting the people that can speak to their own experiences. And I will say the advocacy, doesn't stop when I leave the room, the Senate room. There is a long history of me advocating for students like myself and not like myself. And you're welcome to look that up through media and things like that locally. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, of course.
Hi, everyone. With all of this talk about legislation and bills, I was wondering if each candidate could go down the line and explain exactly which bills and legislation they have passed, and if they have not passed any, please explain why you believe you are fit to oversee legislation if you have not passed any yourself.
This is going to take a long time, so I am going to time you guys. I'm so sorry. If you could write the priority bills, maybe. Yeah.
Or just a number, possibly.
Oh, yeah, a number would be good.
Hi, Audrey. Yes, so my freshman year, Freshman Campus Leadership Associates, I proposed legislation my first year, and then as a sophomore, while I directed the program, I helped, I think, 9 groups of legislation get passed, working alongside the students inside of FCLA. This semester, or this year, I didn't pass any legislation, but I did work on a student-led project to increase inclusivity within the Student Senate to ensure that we have microphones within our Senate spaces so we can amplify our voices so it's easier for students who are deaf and hard of hearing to hear within Senate spaces, which I am. And I felt like I didn't need to pass legislation stating that the Senate supports or endorses that mission because, like I talk about, that's just another piece of the legislation that doesn't really enact tangible change because the tangible change is already enacted. So, but yeah, thank you for your question.
I'm the big one. Yeah. So I've actually not been involved in ASUN in the past. And I believe that my experiences in other organizations and leadership ability, as well as my ability to make myself available to learning, is what makes me credible to be in this role. I don't know everything, and I don't claim to know everything, but I am claiming that I will learn and that I can work with current administration to do that. And I plan to do that if elected for upwards of 25 hours a week in the summer to onboard myself and learn everything that needs to be learned before the beginning of this semester.
Hi, Audrey. My freshman year, I was in the midst of writing a bill, but the woman or the girl that I was going to write it with, she had to move, so it was just going to be a dead end anyways without her. With Ben, alongside Ben, we helped the freshmen our co-directing years to do bills, and I think the reason that we could, as a team, honestly, is being transparent, being proactive, and utilizing all the support that we have. Senate is big, committees are big. I think being able to communicate with who needs help, who needs what, it doesn't just have to be executive team. If we can create a culture where everybody almost leans on each other, creating legislation that passes will be seamless.
Have you passed any bills yourself?
No, I said I didn't.
Thanks, Audrey, for the question. I passed 3 bills this session. The first was in October to support alcohol sales in Memorial, Devaney, and the Huebner Sports Complex. That basically said the student body supports this decision and supports President Urban voting yes. That was a combination of efforts between President Urban and I to get that passed on the Board of Regents. And you can disagree, but there was legislative change because of that resolution. Second, and most importantly, I think, is what is the most tangible thing ASUN has done all year? We pressured the university to delay class. Now, in our statement about the class delay because of the frigid temperatures that week, there was a 3-hour class delay until 11. We said that it's like putting frostbite on it's putting a Band-Aid on frostbite. It's a half measure that didn't address the real root of the issue. But that was the only time the ASUN administration has actually listened to ASUN. We condemned the administration's handling of the weather.
Oh. That was a minute, I'm sorry.
Can I finish I'll finish
I think she said that was a minute.
on the second. Thanks, Audrey.
Would it be possible to respond to some factual inaccuracies in that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so... Right, so you did not work with President Urban in passing alcohol sales at Memorial Stadium. You knew that President Urban was going to advocate at the Board of Regents, and then you passed a resolution to capitalize on that. The snow day, also administration did not know that you were going to be passing that. The next day was just extremely cold, so they canceled school.
I think the resolution certainly helped, and Elizabeth and President Herbin had not shared what her vote was going to be on that vote in the Board of Regents. So it is important to recognize that did ensure that vote was going to be yes on the student regency level. And then second, on the snow level, we condemned the university, and then they responded literally an hour later. And the wind chill at that temperature on the Thursday after was actually warmer than the wind chill on that Wednesday. So to say that they did not respond to that legislation is a misnomer and a lie.
So they canceled an hour later. They were not responding to you in your legislation.
Agree to disagree.
Emma, if you would like to share.
Yes, thank you for the question. To be honest, several. I think I'm up to 5 or 6 now, with 2 more on the way, and probably some other one, who knows. They span a lot of different avenues, whether it's SMP, whether it's diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether it's community building, whether it's supporting, the University Health Center on this campus, all kinds of things. I see inequities, and I try to do whatever I can to help. Do I do it perfectly? Probably not, but who does? But I do try, and I have written several pieces of legislation, and I do want to mention also, being a chair, being a co-chair, those roles, I support a lot of folks in their legislation as well, and by no means do I claim that legislation. But a lot of that work is also done there as well, supporting people in the writing of their own legislation, giving them the resources and the time that they deserve.
Thank you, Emma. That's 1 minute. Thank you.
Hello, Audrey. If I'm to be transparent too, I haven't had any experience or writing of it. However, I think there is clear steps that we can take to make it more fast and more accessible and less of a headache for everyone involved. First, it starts with clear communication. We just need to be sure on that communication, and honestly, less sugarcoating, more, hey, this is what I mean. We can talk about this. We can all be adults and civil and talk about this. Structure, again, a format. I think formatting, especially for the new people, would be great. It's a good start. And openness, having open conversations. I would like to say for me, I have a passion for learning when it comes to help for the community. I might not know a lot as of now, but I would work outside of the time spent to learn what I need to learn because I want to help the campus that I love so dearly.
Thank you. All right, Marlena?
Awesome. Yes, so I have passed 3 pieces of legislation. The first one was a big project back in November that I passed, and that was the creation of the Student Bill of Rights. Obviously, after the Office of Diversity and Inclusion was shut down, I thought that it was important for all students to have a resource that outlined their rights and responsibilities when it came to discrimination and harassment, also their academic freedoms, and then also their rights when it came to protesting on campus. The second one was an event that uplifted Black queer voices during Black History Month. And then the third one was on behalf of Equity Grant Selection Committee, or Allocation Committee, sorry. So you can decide if you want to count that or not, but giving funding to the MLK banquet that happened, but still just that institutional knowledge of knowing how to actually write a bill.
Thank you. Luke?
Yeah, so during my ASUN tenure, I've passed 11 pieces of legislation, 5 as EVP, 4 as the GLC chair, and 2 as a FCLA member. Most recently, you'll see that an Uber piece of legislation to authorize the creation of the Safe Ride program using the $100,000 that was secured during our term. Another most recent one was a bill to authorize funding for a 250-person pilot program to expand access to Grammarly Premium across the university because we believe that more students than just the College of Business should have access. You'll also see that we passed legislation to authorize New York Times game subscriptions for students that vote in the ASUN elections because a critique that we've been hearing and one we've been taking in is that more students should be engaging with the ASUN elections, and we responded to that. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Reem?
I'm going to keep it brief for time's sake. I passed one FCLA bill. It was on DEI and training for faculty and staff led by students. My sophomore year, I passed 2 pieces of legislation. One of them was like a semester-long project of addressing the conflict in Palestine and Israel and it was one piece of legislation, but the project was kind of connecting campus partners with administrators and in ASUN, and then also passing legislation to make sure that we get an iftar break during Senate. This past year, I've passed 3 pieces of legislation, the ODI town hall at the beginning of the semester. I'm missing one, but off the top of my head, there was the piece of legislation that we took to the Association of Big Ten Students conference in DC. That is a piece of legislation that we passed within our Senate to go ahead and pass at the Big Ten level.
Thank you, everyone.
How you doing? I'm Jack Wagner. I guess my question is kind of going back to what the Independent Party was saying a lot about, and really all of you guys, about just the democracy of ASUN. And there's been, it seems like there's an agreement that everybody on stage wants there to be a student vote in the Regents Board. But I don't know if the stat was thrown out there. I think it was that only 7% of students vote for ASUN. And I don't think I'm wrong in saying that a lot of the people in this room either are running, had run, are in, or know someone in it. And so I guess to all the parties, what is your real plan to get more people involved? Because it doesn't really matter if there's a vote if only 7% of people are voting for ASUN. That doesn't seem very democratic to me. So I guess what's the initiative here? I guess give me some kind of legislation, give me something about how you're trying to make, I guess, more people come out to vote or more people know about ASUN. Jade made a really good point about how most people, if you pick somebody on campus in front of the union, they're gonna go, I mean, I guess I know it's a thing, but so I guess, yeah, that's my question.
I'm going to give each party 1 minute just in the interest of time, but just so you guys know that that is what I'm doing.
Yep,
We'll start
super
with
quickly, I think that the reason that people vote in elections is because it's contested. That's why I think that more students are learning about ASUN on campus right now, because there is a contested election. I think that in general, engaging people, it comes from personal connections and it comes from personal conversations. Luke talked about that earlier, right, is that people get involved in ASUN because of other people they know and because the community is fostered. People come and desire to be involved in organizations because of the community they receive and because of the impact that they can have on the university. And we think that by having personal connections and spreading that out wide, again, getting out there at new student orientation is one tangible way that we want to do that.
Perfect. Thank you. Independents?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I obviously think that this boils down to why student election groups are, how they function. Executives get together and decide, okay, these are the people that we want. They send out this email to people requesting them to run for student government. And I think SEGs have a place in student government. That being said, we have let them dominate ASUN for far too long. I think this is more of an esoteric reason to vote independent, but I do think it's grounded in actual change in that I was the only independent to win in multiple years in a contested election. And this year we have more independent Senate candidates than running from many years past for their individual seats. I think when you start to unlock that and when you show that it doesn't matter that you're not on Asun's emailing list, it doesn't matter that you're not connected to a student election group, that you can be a part of student government, I think we then solve the competition problems, obviously. But then that allows us to be more representative, and then obviously more people are going to vote when more pockets of campus are represented.
All right. Jade?
Yeah, thank you for bringing up my point, but I am someone who was that underrepresented, did not vote because I simply did not know that this stuff was happening. So my first thought would be to target events at those underrepresented groups. For example, physically going to those colleges and setting up a booth with information, passing out the information. We can do social events, lots more posters, flyers, just drilling it in to the point. And then really, really pushing the, hey, please vote, and explaining why it's important for students to vote and why it's important for you as a student body to be picking who you want to be your voice.
Perfect. Thank you. Ascend?
Yeah, quickly on the independence point, many of the independents that are running are ones that you identified and encouraged to run. I think Nicholas Stefanik, Veronica Sargbaugh, really using the exact same strategy that SEGs use. The only difference is you didn't file. kind of getting to the core of the question, though, New York Times game subscriptions, this was something that our administration did that that encouraged students to be interacting with the ASU in elections. That's an actionable step that has been taken by our team. The RSO President's Roundtable, I agree with Libby. To really reach people, we need to be going to where they're at, and we need to be inviting them into ASUN, and I think this is a great actionable way to get that done. Kind of the core of your question where you said, why should we have a regent if only 7 people are voting? I mean, I think you can analogize that to local politics, right? A lot of people don't engage with it, but we still elect the mayor. Our students deserve to be represented at the Board of Regents. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Hello, I just have 2 quick questions for Catalyst. My name is Tia Chisholm, and I am the president of the African People's Union, and DEI is a topic that's very important to me and our members as well. So my first question is, how do you intend to protect DEI when your campaign, compared to others, has an extreme lack of cultural and racial diversity? While DEI is more than racial and ethnic background, it's ignorant to say that these communities won't be significantly impacted. This can include representation from NPHC and MGC as well. Personally, I feel that other campaigns have put a lot more effort into diversifying and incorporating a wide range of voices.
Yeah, we don't want to tokenize people. We believe that diversity is more than race, ethnicity, religion. We have members of our campaign who represent diverse communities in those areas, but we believe that there's significant more impact that happens when you consider diversity of thought, when you consider diversity of experience, and allowing everyone to have a seat at the table.
Okay. And then my second question is, you all have mentioned how you want to make ASUN more fun again and that ASUN should host more student events. So why do you think that ASUN should harbor this when other orgs like UPC, RHA, and other RSOs already do some more of these fun events, as you would say, around campus?
Yeah, I think that you partner with those organizations. I don't think that we say that we need to make sure that ASUN is organizing all of these events. There are already events that are in the bylaws, the big event or stock. However, we would say that it is important to foster community. And we're saying specifically within the Senate and within committees that there needs to be an uplifting, there needs to be inspiring, there needs to be motivation, and a lot of that motivation and the reason people would show up for Senate is because it's enjoyable. They like the people that they're around. So fostering that community is important.
So do you have any ideas for events that you want to collab with other groups on?
Yeah, I mean, I think you talk about homecoming is the Student Alumni Association along with WIC Alumni Center. You go back to events around sustainability. Let's work with East Campus, student advisory boards. Yeah.
Hi. So as I'm campaigning for EVP, I wanted to make sure that I meet with certain RSOs. Something that really held information in my mind was I met with an ASU president, and she said that it's a bit challenging. This is very niche, but catering. I think we've all kind of had trouble with catering. ASUN kind of needs to almost bridge that gap. If an RSO has an issue, I would say, come talk to ASUN executives. They wanted to do Lunar New Year. They couldn't have traditional food. I don't think that's fair. So yeah, making sure we bridge that gap. If any RSOs want to come talk to us, it's an open door. We should be able to uplift and voice their concerns to administration and places that UNL has.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you to everyone who came to ask questions of our executive slate. They will be around still after the debate if you'd like to ask them any more questions. Obviously up to their own discretion. I, at the Daily Nebraskan, cannot control the executive candidates, but be aware that they will be here and hopefully ready to answer your questions at the end of the event. Given as it is getting pretty late, we are going to move on to closing remarks from each of our tickets. Each ticket will have 5 minutes. No ticket has to take 5 minutes, but I will move in the same order, and we will start with Catalyst.
Great. Once again, we'd just like to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring. Thank you for bearing with us through this extraordinarily long debate. So I'm going to make this short and sweet. We just want to drive home one more time that we are the unconventional campaign. We are the underdogs. We're running against the incumbents. And if you didn't know about ASUN prior to this election, I encourage you to ask yourself why. We believe that encouraging student government requires fresh perspectives while continuing the progress on positive legislation that has been left behind. We believe in representing student voices. We aren't just trying to sell you on cheap ideas, but we want to implore you to think deeper, to look at the root of the problem, and to ask yourself to consider the campaign that can invest well in ASUN as an organization, ultimately investing in you. We're prepared to build bridges, not burn them, and to work with you, the students. Also, we want to work with faculty and staff and others to ignite change and to be the catalyst. Join us in voting on My Red on April 1st and 2nd.
Thank you. From our independents. 5 minutes. Yes.
Jack and I started this debate introducing you to us as people because we feel that this is important to understand that we are students and people first. There's been a lot of talk about leadership and policy, and I want to recognize the student leaders on this stage and the work that has been done on these campaigns. In the same breath, I want to acknowledge I am not a politician by nature. I'm an educator. My values lie in people and communities first, in the voice of the whole over the select few that have been chosen, in the importance of students, in the importance of my students, my peers first. I've proven my leadership in my legislation and projects, my work as a supportive chair of the S&P committee and co-chair of the DEI committee, and as a student and peer. Prior to joining you at UNL, I was elected twice as Student Senate President at my previous college. I served on the Board of Regents, advocated for students at events and in the local media, and worked to create a comfortable and inclusive community in that Senate by working with both my peers, faculty, and the regents that I knew firsthand. What I don't know, I will learn. What I'm unsure about, I'll ask. And when you as students need support, I'll be there to advocate for you or to uplift your voice when I am not the person that should be speaking. I ask that you elect me as internal vice president based off of my long-standing proven work, my fierce advocacy, and my willingness to serve each and every one of you. Thank you.
I think Emma, when I reached out to Emma, I reached out to her to be what would have been a Senate candidate for the College of Education and Human Sciences. And she told me, she was like, you really want me as a senator? And I was like, well, actually, I think you'd be a great internal vice president, but I know that you and I don't always agree in the Senate, and I know that at times that gets tense. And then you've heard the rest of the story, and the rest is history. I think my choice to get Emma on the ticket was one of the smartest I've made this year, and the smartest I've made on this campaign. There is, I don't think, a better advocate for mental health resources. I don't think there's a better advocate for equitable access to ASUN like Emma Lindsay. That being said, there's a subtle but a clear difference between the 3 presidential and the 3 internal vice presidential candidates on the stage tonight. While SEGs, right, get very much in this party mindset and are clawing at each other and trading petty jabs, we're running as independents because that's what Huskers care about. Huskers care about what we're actually going to do for them. And that's why our policy is rooted in what Huskers want and what the university needs. One thing that we've noticeably not talked about tonight is our alcohol policy. It's one of our biggest campaign priorities. It is a secret to no one that students are going to drink. Our current status as a weapon of enforcement against students who are over 21 drinking in the dorms is not only irresponsible, but it encourages students who want to follow the rules to go off campus and binge drink, to go off campus and drive while under the influence. And so we are proudly the only people on this stage talking about updating that policy at the Regents level. If you are over 21, you should be able to drink in your dorms. Further, I think it's important to note As an RA, I would much rather have my residents drink under my roof. Why? Because RAs are trained to deal with alcohol poisoning. They're trained to deal with overconsumption. They're trained to recognize the symptoms of alcoholism. It was FDR, someone who I admire greatly, who said, "The country needs, and unless I mistake its temper, the country demands bold, persistent experimentation. It is common sense to take a method and try it. If it fails, admit it frankly and try another. But above all, try something." That has grounded a lot of what this campaign is. Voting for an independent at the top of the ticket is something that has never been done before. I would be proudly the first independent to be the president of the student body, showing that anyone can rise and be the highest student officer at Nebraska. This election is a choice between candidates and a team between Emma and I that's here to build something better. I didn't run for Senate because I wanted to join the game. I ran because students deserve better, and I spent every day working to make that real. I'm going to say it one more time. I'm Jack Burgess. I'm a 7th-generation Nebraskan. And vote independent, vote Burgess and Lindsay on April 1st and 2nd on my red. Thank you.
Jade, you'll have 5 minutes.
Okay. What I want to say is, honestly, it might be a little sappy, and I apologize greatly for that. I just wanted to say thank yous. Firstly, I wanted to say thank yous to Ascend, Catalyst, our independents. I wanted to say thank you in specific. You guys have taught me so much just for me sitting here. Your words are so incredibly astounding and poetic to hear. And as someone who really does not have any sort of public speaking whatsoever, it's just inspiring to hear how passionate you guys are with each of your campaigns, and I commend you greatly for it. Thank you so much for this learning experience. I also want to say thank you next to everyone who is still here in the crowd. Personally, my back is aching right now, but thank you guys so much for showing up. I had no idea that this many people, in a sense, genuinely cared, and it's so nice to see people who care. Then I would like to say next thank you to everyone who's watching still at home, and Mom and Grandma, hi. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's awesome that you're doing this away from here and still paying attention, and specifically thank you to my Momentum people that could not be here. Sornima, Emma, Cameron, I would have never tried to do this by myself without your encouragement. Thank you so much for encouraging me and telling me I can do this even if I'm sitting here alone. So, with that being said, let's make ASUN more inclusive, more open to new people, and keep that momentum going. Thank you guys.
All right, Ascend, I'll let you wrap it up. 5 minutes.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to build off of the opening statement a little bit since I ran out of time. But I just want to say, as a queer Black woman, I know firsthand the importance of representation and advocacy. Ensuring that every student feels seen, heard, and supported is deeply personal to me. But advocacy isn't just about empty rhetoric. It's about showing up and delivering real results. Ascend has made it clear tonight that we have already been laying the groundwork, and we have plans to implement policies and initiatives that students actually care about. That's why Luke, Reem, and I are committed to our campaign value of authentic advocacy, because real change happens when we go beyond conversations and take meaningful action. Whether it's funding resources, holding administration accountable, or amplifying student voices, our advocacy is intentional and consistent.
I just want to kind of echo the thank yous across the room. Thank you all for tuning in and kind of hearing us out tonight. Thank you to the Daily Nebraskan for having us, and thank you to the candidates for participating tonight. I think that it says a lot that there's so many people who care about kind of where our student government goes. I know ASUN has mixed reviews across campus, and I absolutely acknowledge and understand the reasonings that people may not trust student government. I do think that it is, like I said at the beginning, it is the premier advocacy organization, and I do put a lot of importance in the work that we do. I genuinely do care for students on this campus. I think especially marginalized students, as just various I think it's kind of speaking for myself and speaking for the communities that have uplifted me and put me in where I am today is why I care so much about this position and why I want to continue the great work that we have been able to do. ASU1 has offered me so many different opportunities of advocacy at the highest level of this university and of this state, and I think that that is something that goes to show that we are doing something correct and doing something right, regardless of whatever rhetoric has been being spread. I guess at the end of the day, I am very passionate about this university. I'm very passionate about its students and continuing to advocate for them and ensuring that every student has the right people in office advocating for them and speaking up for them, regardless of how difficult it may be in this present society. And I do hope that you all resonated with some of the things that we discussed today as far as our policies and our values. And we hope that you can vote Ascend on April 1st and 2nd in my red.
Yeah. And I'll just keep it really brief. I do believe that the university is uniquely positioned right now to make long-term sustainable change that benefits the student body this year, and it's very important that we reaffirm the student voice, and especially with everything going on in higher education. Really, I'm largely referring to the Student Regent Initiative, and I am, it's great to hear that everyone on this stage right now supports it. So all of our initiatives are grounded with this idea in mind, and they've been intentionally crafted to be attainable and sustainable for years to come. I've really been encouraged by all the support we've gotten throughout this campaign season, especially from our slate, which so many are represented here today, and thank you guys so much for coming. You know, we're only 3 people running right now, and I think it's our mission as student leaders to deputize the entire student body to come along with us and make these sustainable changes. So vote for people who can get it done. Vote Ascend. Thank you guys.
All right. Thank you, everybody. That concludes our 2025 ASUN Executive Candidate Debate. Thank you so much for joining the Daily Nebraskan and our SUGs and candidates this evening. Voting on ASUN election opens on MyRed on April 1st and 2nd. Beyond executive candidates, students can also vote for senators at their college, at-large committee members, graduate members. So for more information, please visit that ASUN election page and stay tuned with the Daily Nebraskan for more event coverage. Thank you all and have a great rest of your night.